Hello, everyone. This is Kelly Beatty for Chelmsford TeleMedia. It's October, and it's the Senior Center, and it's fall session of town meeting. We have 35 articles on the warrant. That's more than usual, but as you'll see, they tend to be bundled into two groups. So I've got three takeaways for you for tonight and Thursday night, which should be the other night and only a two-night session. First is I want you to please pay attention to the financial forecast that you'll hear from John Souza and Town Manager Paul Cohen. We are looking forward to a time in the not too distant future when we're going to have negative budgets and a shortfall. The second thing will have to do with the fact that we have $5 million in free cash. Now, ordinarily, that would go into the stabilization fund, but the stabilization fund's at $16.75 million. That's about 10% of our annual budget, and that's the target. So a whole slew of articles will be dealing with how to spend that money. And then finally, the planning board will be coming forward with a wholly new kind of zoning. We can call it the Kate's Corner Complex, brought about by the sale of Maxwell's feed and supply store and the very interesting mix of businesses and residents that we have there. So I think you're going to see the free cash dealt with tonight and the zoning, the new zoning bylaw, which will be long and involved, coming up on Thursday night. In the meantime, I want to make you aware that some of the money from the free cash will be going into capital improvement projects and new streets, and there's a whole list of things. There's actually 8 articles having to do with what to do with that free cash. There are a couple of other warrant articles that you'll be hearing about. There'll be a consent agenda, which is normally taken up at the beginning. But do pay attention to the financial forecast, and we'll be starting momentarily when Town Moderator John Curlin calls us forward for the Pledge of Allegiance. Stay tuned, please.
I'd like to call tonight's meeting to order. Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I would like to ask that we maintain a moment of silence in memory of Doreen Deschler, who was a town meeting rep, and she passed since our last meeting. Okay, we have a new voting system, and it will actually reflect on your clicker if you voted and how it registered, but let's test it for a quorum. Also, I'd like to announce that the fire exits are on both sides of this room and at the entrance where you first came in. And I've been asked to request that if you have to leave the meeting early, kindly drop off your electronic voting devices with the checkers in the front hall. Oh, well, we've got a quorum.
We have a quorum, but I'd like to see who's here because I wrote that number on my minutes. So I'd like to see that everybody that's here actually clicks the button.
Okay. It's based on your last name, actually. Oh, I mean your first name. Sorry, it is your first name. I don't know why. We spoke about that. That'll change hopefully by Friday. Okay, so everybody realized that they voted. I've also checked the warrant and can announce for the record that this meeting has been properly noticed in accordance with the law. I would like to welcome all of you to tonight's meeting. As has been our practice, we have two screens so that all reps may read the articles and any amendments upon which you will be voting. You can also view the slides on the screen of your laptops, tablets, computers, or other smart devices. Simply log on using the instructions on the screen. Speaking of amendments, all amendments will be submitted in the forms which you can get from either the town clerk or me. If you know prior to town meeting that you intend to file an amendment, you can see me or Patricia Zuris prior to the meeting for the form, or you can email them to me, and I will make the necessary copies and distribute them to town council and the typist so that they will be ready before town meeting begins. And if you get it to either of us prior to the introduction of that article, town council should have the opportunity to review the amendment, which will expedite the meeting. This form will create an original in 3 copies. I retain the white copy. The yellow copy goes to the amendment assistant. The pink copy is retained by the town clerk, and you retain the orange copy for your records. I want to thank Chelmsford TeleMedia for their assistance in setting up the screens, timer, streaming, and broadcasting this meeting. Here are the rules with respect to town meeting protocol and procedure. All questions shall emanate from the microphone facing the moderator in the center of the hall and shall go through the moderator. Board or committee members, other town officials, or department heads may use other microphones to answer questions or provide information to the meeting. Speakers shall refrain from asking rhetorical or argumentative questions and shall only ask questions seeking needed information. The questions should be in the who, what, when, where, and why mode. Kindly avoid argumentative questions that start or end with, isn't it true, or wouldn't you admit? I would prefer not to have to rule questions out of order, but I am bound by the laws and regulations that define our conduct, and I will do my best to enforce them fairly and respectfully. I will allow up to 3 follow-up questions. All presenters of articles shall be limited to 10 minutes, and I shall notify each when they have 1 minute remaining. With respect to discussion, speakers are encouraged to be brief, and each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes of debate. You should be able to make your points within 3 minutes. If you truly believe that is not enough time for you to make your arguments, kindly advise me in advance, and I may allow some leeway. This time limit also applies to those responding to questions. Speakers can ask up to 4 questions prior to engaging in discussion. Making inquiries will not be considered part of the 3-minute discussion limit unless you have started discussion and then ask questions. Once the clock starts, it will not stop until the speaker does or time expires. I would appreciate being advised in advance that a speaker is beginning discussion. A speaker should not speak a second time and shall only be given this opportunity to correct a dispute or dispute a statement of fact made by a previous speaker. This privilege will be narrowly construed by the moderator. We do have other rules of protocol. Please do not refer to any prior speaker by name. The proper designation is to call him or her the previous speaker. Please refrain from personal attacks. Challenging or arguing in opposition to another's position is fair game and is what this meeting is all about. Intentional slander against any individual or group cannot be tolerated. Let us refrain from repeating arguments that have already been made, but new ideas or distinctions are welcome and encouraged. Discussion of pending litigation will not be permitted unless specifically included in the warrant article being debated. If during the course of discussion I observe several speakers on one side of an issue but none in opposition, I will interrupt debate to inquire if there are any who wish to express the opposing position or offer an amendment. If there are none, I shall end debate and move the question. If there is opposition, I will move that party to the front of the line and allow debate to continue. I trust that you will all appreciate how this will advance our mutual goal of moving town meeting along. To those who may be next in line, should I ever have to exercise this process, you have my apologies in advance. There will not be any debating from the presenter's podium. They may answer questions, but should they want to engage in debate, presenters will have to queue up in line like everyone else. Transparency and effective governance are the two goals of town meeting. To expedite our meetings without affecting transparency, we have successfully employed a process called consent agenda. A consent agenda allows the representatives to bundle several routine articles into one so that instead of taking several separate votes on these essentially routine articles, we take one vote on all of them. The town manager and I have discussed the type of articles that would be conducive to this process. These are articles that generally do not involve any questions or debate and are passed in the normal course of town business. I shall request a motion that the body vote to approve a consent agenda involving the articles to be included therein. This still allows for questions and answers and discussion with the opportunity to add or delete consent agenda articles as town meeting deems best. Unlike past sessions, we shall have two consent agendas, one for tonight and one for Thursday's session. To that end, I'm suggesting that tonight's consent agenda shall consist of the following articles: 2, 3, 5, and 35, which is an article in which there's no action to be taken. Thursday's consent agenda shall consist of articles 15 through 27. Out of regard for the presenters and your fellow town meeting representatives, I must respectfully request that there be no conversations at your tables. If I can hear background discussions up here, it means that there may be reps who cannot hear the presentation, questions and answers, or discussion. At the end of tonight's session, I will entertain a motion to reconvene on Thursday, October 23rd at 7:30 at the Senior Center. Thank you. Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Paul Cohen, Town Manager. Article 1 is traditionally the first article at our spring and fall annual town meetings is to hear reports from our town officers and committees. This evening, there's 4 reports for your consideration. I will be providing a brief report on the follow-up an action item at the previous town meeting regarding the search for a pet cemetery. Our Public Works Director, Christine Clancy, will provide a report on our capital infrastructure progress. Our Finance Director, John Souza, will provide, in accordance with our town bylaws, a 5-year financial forecast, and then I'll return to just do a quick overview of the expenditure of funds from free cash at this town meeting. To get started, at last town meeting, there was a vote of the committee to explore the establishment of a pet cemetery in the town of Chelmsford. I have initiated this effort over the last 6 months and reported to the Select Board several weeks ago regarding pet cemeteries in Massachusetts. To the best of our understanding, the only municipal pet cemetery is located in our neighboring town of Littleton. It's known as Charlotte's Garden, as you see there in the photo. It is a really quaint, beautiful place adjacent to their public cemetery on land that was donated along with conservation land adjacent to the cemetery. At the request of the donator, they established a pet cemetery. There's a few things that you should note in the pictures. There's no stones, and basically that allows for a minimal maintenance. The only cremains are accepted for burial at this pet cemetery. Lot sizes are either 2x2 or 4x4, and only one burial is allowed per square foot. Again, only lawn level memorials are permitted. Flat markers are limited to 12x18. There are no plantings or ornament or decorations permitted. Again, that's for minimal maintenance. And basically what I could see going out to the site and visiting there's a small parking area. It's an area that basically, what I can see from maintenance is the town's cemetery workers go in there with mower, just again, mow the surface, and probably in this time of the year, they go out there and blow the leaves. And that's basically essentially a minimal maintenance area. This cemetery was created about 19 years ago. There appeared to be less than 75 internments through the entire cemetery. And sort of my walk through there were not many burials in recent years at this location. I've not been able to find another one, as I mentioned earlier. And so basically we looked at, well, what options are available to Chelmsford? And I did reach out to the Dog Park Advisory Committee and also work with some expertise. We certainly have a member of the select board with cemetery and burial experience, Jeff Hardy. And, would there be a possibility to establish a pet columbarium at the dog park? Again, it's a very frequented site with suitable parking. But again, this would only allow for the burial of cremains. And then in the event that that site were ever transferred to a different use, this could be relocated. However, the petitioner, Mary Donovan, who you recall was at this podium making this request, continues to insist upon creating a pet cemetery that would allow for the burial of pets with non-cremains or in caskets or little coffins. And thus far, we're unable to locate a town property that's sufficient to meet that needs in terms of the acreage and the parking area that's required. We're not allowed to use conservation land for this purpose, and we're also not allowed to use lands that were acquired through the Community Preservation Fund, which is partially state funded for this purpose. And so that is sort of where we are at this point in time, and we'll continue to explore options in the future that may arise to meet this need. So, Mr. Moderator, that concludes my presentation on the pet cemetery. I'm now going to turn the podium over to Christine Clancy, our Public Works Director, who will give an update on infrastructure.
Good evening. Sorry. Good evening. Tonight I do want to provide an update on infrastructure projects across the town, particularly capital, but also so looking at our capital expenditure over the past 5 years, this is a process that really begins right around now and goes through the capital planning committee in November and then gets voted at April town meeting. So this body does vote on the capital plan each spring. So going back to FY22, we had about $3.8 million. And just in the past 5 years, the need or the capital actual plan has really grown by over 50%. That largely is because the amount of infrastructure improvements we have, the age of our infrastructure, and also the cost to complete those repairs are growing as well. So at the DPW, we have 84 current projects in our current log that we maintain. They're in various phases. They can be in planning phases, design phases, construction phases, and it really is made above and beyond, or is comprised more than just capital. We call them capital projects, but they come from other sources of fund. So besides the capital plan that you see and you vote on every spring, there's also annual free cash, and that's what we'll be voting on tonight to appropriate some free cash towards infrastructure needs. Aside from free cash, there's state and federal grants. State earmarks, those are whether it be grants or they go into the annual state budget. We also annually do put some smaller projects in the DPW operations budget or through our sewer and stormwater enterprise accounts. Annually, we do have a roadway and sidewalk paving program that is partially funded by Chapter 90, which does come from the state. Just this past year, they did increase that amount to $1.7 million. Going back over 10 years ago, it had consistently been only $1.1 million. So it's great to get that funding, but really to do our paving program, we need more funds, which is why we usually ask for free cash, or we look at other grants or other ways of increasing that, that need for roadway. Other funds here is MSBA, so through our accelerated repair program, or we'll talk about the Parker School, those are also programs where it's partially funded through the MSBA, Massachusetts State Building Authority. ARPA, this was a recent, through COVID in 2021, it was a federal program where municipalities did receive funding, and really at first it was for ventilation projects and other projects associated with COVID, but we use that through various infrastructure needs. It was a total of $10.6 million. We're still expending those funds. We have until the end of next year, but it has been great to be able to improve our infrastructure with those funds. And then the last category I have is Proposition 2.5 debt exclusion. That relates to the Fire Station 3 and 5 that the town voted on last fall to renovate or really replace Fire Stations 3 and 5. And this graphic here is just to show you it's not meant, please don't squint and try to see it, but this is just a spreadsheet that we do update very frequently. We talk a lot internally at meetings, looking at the funding that we have available, tracking the progress of that project, and seeing the next steps. So just looking at the overall breakdown of our project funding called capital infrastructure, it's comprised of 22% of actual capital dollars that is voted on at town meeting, but there's the various other categories. The 45% debt exclusion you see is the Fire Station 3 and 5 project. Fire Station 3 and 5 project. That is $25 million, so 25 of $56 million is a substantial amount of this current active backlog that I call it that we have working on. And then also just to show it similarly, this pie chart represents what project type we have. So through at DPW, we have various infrastructure projects ranging from school, municipal projects, roadway and sidewalk projects, sewer, stormwater, sustainability, whether it be EV charging stations or trees, and then other open space. So what you can see here, I do show the breakdown per the category, just about $16 million for schools, $29 million is the facilities municipal category. Reminder, $25 million of that $29 million is related to the fire station. But really what it shows is such a large portion of these projects do go towards our buildings. We have various other infrastructure needs, roads, sidewalks, sewer, storm drains, but the majority of it do go to our buildings, both schools and town buildings. So now I just want to give some project examples just to highlight, because I think it's good, like I said, you vote in the spring on what we're working on, and then to come back and just show you some of the updates that we've worked on over the past year. The first project is the Chelmsford High School multi-sport court, and this was through FY22 capital, $1.2 million. And these projects, like I said, sometimes they take many years to actually complete because you go through the planning phase, the designing phase, and then construction, which sometimes can overlap beyond a couple of seasons. So this Chelmsford High School tennis included tennis, basketball, and pickleball courts. It is a post-tension reinforced concrete deck. And it is a superior product to asphalt, so really we should have an extended lifetime of this court system. We also have 6 new pickleball courts as part of this court project. This was dedicated to Al Thomas in the spring of 2025 upon the completion. We did previously have deck hockey courts here, and so people were asking, where are those? Those are being moved over to the McCarthy multi-court project, which should be completed actually this November. The next project is the CCA Exterior Improvements Project. This was fortunately funded through ARPA, just about $86,000. And you can see a before picture, which it really was in much need of removing fixing some of the trim, the wood needed repair, scraping and painting, and you can see after picture. This was completed this summer. Another project is a facilities project, is a food pantry replacement project. The food pantry not only provides service to the residents of Chelmsford, but really is a regional project. This was funded partially by ARPA, but also through a state earmark totaling about $135,000. The previous trailer reached the end of its useful life. Also, they need a little more space. The actual size of the trailer is about the same size, a little taller. Also, some of the internal shelving was adjusted so they could have some more stock within the food pantry. It does have to be climate controlled. And so I guess the great part about this project is we ordered the trailer and it really was a swap out. There was really not a loss of service to the actual food pantry program. And you can see on Wednesdays the amount of people that do utilize this program. It's a large amount of families. So we wanted to make sure that we weren't interrupting that service. And that was completed early this spring. Another project, facilities project for the schools, is the McCarthy Middle School boiler replacement, FY26 capital, $700,000. It's critical to do these projects in the summer so that we can have everything back on and for our heating season, which is technically now. And this, going back past few years, there's been a lot of boiler replacement projects. This is one of our last biggest, projects, at least for the time being, in terms of boiler replacements. This was 4 existing gas-fired Airco 2 million BTU boilers that were replaced with really in kind, but with Lochnavar boilers, as you see here. So just moving aside from some of the facilities projects, some of the other projects that we have are, this would, I guess, be the category I call sustainability. I know it is one of the town's goals to try to help replace or replenish the tree canopy. The tree canopy is, with our tree committee, we've calculated that it's unfortunately declining at about a rate of 1% to 2% a year. It could be through storm damage, people developing, people just not wanting to remove trees, healthy or unhealthy, on the property. Other construction. So we are trying to make an initiative to plant new trees within town property or town right-of-way. So this year we did a total of 121 trees, but this particular project was planting of 66 trees at the high school and the high school complex area and the Harrington Field. 66 trees, to actually plant them is relatively easy. It's really the watering program that is really critical, because you plant trees and then that summer, if they don't get the care they need, they unfortunately die. Of this program, there were about 9 that we are replacing this week, but we were in a drought, so it really was a successful program. Here pictured is through the senior tax credit program, we were able to have people help water weekly all of these 66 trees, which was really great to be able to let these trees thrive in the middle of a drought. And so we purchased that ATV you see behind it. That's our watering truck that we purchased through the grant, and we utilized that program, which was great. 2 staff members, and they were able to alternate weeks throughout the summer. They came out early enough before the heat. So we look to continue that here again next year, because trees should have at least 2 years, well, probably 1 more year of watering. And then as we do other trees around town, we'll also try to mirror this approach. This year we did complete a project around the parking lot rehabilitation needs, and so police station being one of them, and the library. Those are really the 2 largest parking lots that were really in need of restoration, totaling $770,000 FY26 capital. These, as you can see here, it wasn't just a parking lot rehabilitation. There was curbing installation, there was some sidewalk installation, really to address connectivity around the parking lot, through the parking lot, and making ADA access improvements where possible. This was completed this summer. And then annually, we do complete a town-wide roadway and paving program. It is actually still wrapping up. We have a couple more streets that we'll be finishing this week, and then there's some minor punch list work. So we have a total, right here, here's the listing of streets that were completed. It was really funded through various needs. So in order for us to pave our streets and maintain, I guess, the same rate of condition of our roads, we have to spend about $3 million a year. So that is comprised of various funds. It's capital, it's Chapter 90 funds, the $1.7 million now. It's also free cash. So this body voted on the free cash last year for this program. And what we do is we have a database that manages to tell us really what's the next candidates. We look at those to see if that's the right treatment. We have various treatments. We have micro-sealing, which is similar to what you would seal your driveway, so it's more preventative maintenance. Then we have mill and overlay, it's where you see where you take off the top 2 inches of the asphalt. That's really just restoring the pavement that's deteriorated. And then the most extensive restoration is the reclamation. And that is not just the asphalt surface, but also the subgrade below. So, and it's the most costly, but it's necessary because that subbase has deteriorated in those cases. And so we will be publishing, everyone asked, we'll be publishing this next tentative list. Usually by February, we start to publish that. We have a tentative list that we will be sharing tonight, and we will finalize it over the winter. As far as our sewer division, we did complete a project, a sewer force main repair on Progress Ave, and this is a great example of a project because we completed it with our own forces, internal staff. This was appropriated last fall town meeting, $125,000. This, as you can see, on the right, you see this is HDPE pipe that is used. It's actually fused together, so there's really no joints in the pipe system, and it is not the previous pipe, as you can see in the left, or my left, it was ductile iron, so severely deteriorated. You can almost put your finger through it, and we unfortunately had breaks before this repair, 800 feet of repair. So we put back plastic pipe, and we purchased, with this project, we purchased the machine, trained our staff, and completed this project in the amount of $125,000. If we had bid this project out, we probably would have spent at least another $150,000, potentially even more. And it's great that we have this equipment now, so if we have to do more replacements, our staff is trained to do so. And just also, I want to highlight a few projects that are currently in design. So you've heard about them, and we often ask, what's the status of them? So one is Main Street roadway and traffic calming improvements. This is a large enough project that we've kind of taken it out of the roadway and sidewalk program because it's really looking at just beyond pavement restorations, looking at new sidewalks and also traffic calming opportunities along that whole corridor. It is between the School Street intersection and the Groton Road intersection. We are just receiving the assessment with our consultant, GPI. We have a draft report. We'll be getting a final report within the next month. And then we'll be actually, I think because there's potential various recommendations on the table, we'll be meeting with the public through probably the Vinyl Square group and also with the direct neighborhood with sending out notifications sometime this winter. It probably will have to be somewhat of a phased project just because it's a larger cost. We're talking in the millions. It was $195,000 just to design where we are, just to get through the schematic recommendations. And so I say it's to be determined, but it's great to be able to move forward this project, and we'll have updates to the community soon. And potentially starting to put it on the capital plan for next year. So we're looking at that right now, again, in a phased approach. Another project, and this is one of our larger projects right now, voted last fall through the 2.5 proposition town vote, $25 million to replace both fire station number 3 and number 5. 3 is located at 260 Old Westford Road, and 5 is located at 295 Acton Road. Both fire stations have reached the end of their useful life, and they really require upgrades to be a safer space and code compliance for our firefighters. Really separating the garage gear decontamination area, we call it the hot zone, from the cold zone, which is the living quarters. So where we are with this project right now is we meet sometimes more than a couple times a week, so quickly advancing this project. We've hired Left Field as the owner's project representative, and then the Galante Architecture Studio as the architect. We are, as you see, so what you see right here is the rendering that was prepared at the schematic design. These projects are intended to go out to bid at the same time in the spring, and then be constructed next year, continuing into 27. We should be getting 60% design next, and then we'll be going out to bid this winter. A couple things to note is that both of these stations will meet the stretch energy code. They will have solar panels. And station number 3 at Old Westford Road, we are right now looking at also geothermal heat, so that will probably be our first geothermal municipal town project. So later on tonight, when we're presenting warrant articles, you will hear about roofs. As we look at our 5-year plans, roofs start to pop up a lot in our needs. We have older buildings, and we're coming upon that time where a lot of the roofs are requiring replacement. They've reached the end of the useful life. The South Road roof being one of them. We were very fortunate to be able to be selected as part of the MSBA accelerated replacement program. They do it for roofs, for doors, for windows, and for boilers. And so really that will allow us to seek reimbursement for up to 52% of this project. It is a $4.5 million project, but reimbursable by about 52% of the eligible items, which is primarily the whole thing, except the solar panels are on the roof right now. So the actual purchase of new solar panels will be non-reimbursable, but it's something that we are looking at right now. So the overall project is 36,000 square feet. It removes removal of 2 roof systems and putting back a new PVC, what you see in the lower part of the picture, the white plastic PVC roof. It will have a 30-year warranty. And the solar panels that are on there, they are working, but they are not as efficient as the new solar panels. And so when we went through the analysis, it's almost the same cost of just taking off the panels and putting new panels on. It's really an incremental cost for the project. So that we'll be putting new panels on a new roof system, and then the next will be 30 years when we're looking at replacing both of those systems. This project is just about to go out to bid, and it will be completed next summer. So I didn't want to go over all 84 projects, but just to go over some of them, but also looking at next steps. And so what you see as you prepare, so you'll see some themes tonight maybe in the warrant articles, but also as we're right now preparing for our capital plan for next year, or really we plan a 5-10-year plan, is our roadway program. We have to continue our roadway program to maintain the condition that people see today, or improve it, if we can improve it. In order to maintain it, we have to spend $3 million. So that's why we often look for free cash and then supplementing with capital and other funds. Like I said, at the beginning of the presentation, I showed you the pie charts, and so much of our needs go to buildings. Our buildings are old. Just our schools alone are between 50 and 70 years old, and a lot of our buildings themselves are requiring replacements. A lot of the systems within the buildings age out after 20, 30 years, so we're seeing a lot of those whole system replacements. So roofs are really a popular theme in the next few years, several years. Building HVAC improvements, you'll start to see too. We voted at previous capital for the Adams Library HVAC. We're still continuing that project. The police station HVAC has needs and will continue to have some capital needs. Elevators and boilers I put on there because I feel like we always have an elevator or boiler that we're working on. We do have a lot of elevator projects underway right now, and we have a lot of boiler projects that we're just wrapping up. But it is kind of cyclical in that there's always system improvements to these older buildings to maintain them. Aside from building infrastructure, there's also in roadway infrastructure, there's also a lot of needs both for our sewer and storm drains. We have 190 miles of sewer, 41 pump stations, about 120 plus miles of drainage needs. There's needs to replace our drainage, but also build it out. And so that is really something that we'll be annually asking for to make upgrades to both the sewer system, whether it be the force mains, the distribution, or the gravity mains, or the actual pump stations. In drainage, there's, we were in a drought this year, but going back just a couple of years, there are a lot of flooding concerns. We've done watershed studies, so there's definitely some needs to improve our drainage, but also we have inflow in our sewer system. We have a large capacity, sewer capacity constraint, so there's a need to remove inflow from the sewer system, or infiltration, and so we're starting to identify some of those sewer projects for inflow removal, but by doing that, you have to extend or install drainage infrastructure. So even though they're two separate departments, in some ways, when you get into inflow projects, they really are combined efforts. And then I didn't highlight tonight fleet needs, but that is something that for infrastructure, we're always competing with our, with our infrastructure, hard infrastructure in terms of roads and buildings with our fleet needs, because that is something that's necessary to maintain our town. So DPW always has heavy fleet needs, or we call them heavier light fleet needs. And then I know fire trucks, we're coming upon a time where annually we'll be looking at other needs, and those are also I think they're over $1 million now. So that is just something that we compete with when we look at capital needs. And then I just also want to touch upon the Parker School, because this really is probably the largest project before us. It is the largest project before us, and so we have, I think we've been discussing this, and it was presented last year. So we've been invited by the MSBA to participate in this really great opportunity to look at having a new Parker Middle School. This is the MSBA process is a very competitive process, and really a great opportunity to have a new middle school for our children. The last school was the high school, and so about 50 years ago. So there's a school building committee, and there's been meetings almost weekly again to advance this project. So where we are right now in the feasibility study is we have an owner's project manager, left field, and we've just recently selected the designer, AI3 architect. And this, like I said, this isn't just a DPW project. This is a whole community project. This is with the school department. This is with the school building committee. What's important here is it's important to try to stay informed on this project. There is a session coming up in 2 nights, October 22nd, at the Chelmsford Elks Lodge. There is a QR code here too. You can scan it. This brings you to the website, and it does provide you updates as we advance this project. As far as the timeline, right now we're in the feasibility stage, and there's visioning sessions that are being held with various building administrators, teachers, department heads, and students to share their insights and to help. They can inform what a visioning of a new school. So there'll be information at this presentation on Wednesday night at the Chelmsford Elks Lodge, and any community members can come and learn about the project and ask any questions. There'll be other sessions occurring on Thursday, November 20th, and then Wednesday, December 17th, also at the Chelmsford Elks Lodge. And like I say, I do ask, if you're interested, definitely look at the website, because that's where we will be pushing out information through that website. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight, I'd like to provide you with some highlights of our updated 5-year financial forecast. In this presentation, we'll review revenues, expenditures, and the overall forecast for the upcoming 5 fiscal years. Under revenue, looking ahead for fiscal year 27, our largest source is local property taxes. Property taxes support 77%, or over 3/4 of our town budget. Under state law, we start with our levy base of $128.6 million, which is a historical figure from the prior year, add the 2.5% increase, and then add estimated new growth of $2 million, along with excluded debt service an amount for excluded debt service of $2.37 million, and that gives us $136.23 million, which is the maximum that can be raised through property taxes. Moving on to state aid, this is our second largest revenue source. Chapter 70 aid for education, we're projecting will increase $600,000 or 4% for the coming fiscal year. And we're also projecting that general municipal aid will increase about 2.5%, or just under $160,000 for the coming year. It's important to note that state aid is uncertain at this point. And then we move on. The next category is available funds. This is a collection of reimbursements from various revolving and special purpose funds. And a couple that I'd like to highlight is a reimbursement from the Child Care Revolving Fund. This is to cover benefits for school employees involved in child care. This is increasing to keep pace with the estimated increase for health insurance this year. And then the second one is a $1.6 million transfer to fund debt service from sewer betterments and our sewer construction stabilization funds for the final phases of the sewer system construction. And then our last category is local receipts. And we're anticipating that motor vehicle excise will increase about $350,000 to $6.5 million for the coming year. And it's important to note that motor vehicle excise taxes make up about 50% of local receipts. So if we look at total local receipts, we're estimating that it will increase just about $859,000 or 6.6%. So adding all of that revenue together, that comes up with about $176.85 million. And then we move on to expenditures. So for general government, we're anticipating that a 3% cost of living allowance for personnel, as well as 2% for most expenses. For the Chelmsford Public Schools, we're anticipating an increase of $3.5 million. And then for Neshoba, we're estimating a 5% increase, or a little over $200,000 for the coming year. Our debt service is broken down into three categories: excluded debt, non-excluded debt, and betterment funded. And I'm just going to go to the column charts you can see here. Excluded debt service on the chart is shown in red. It's about $273,000 this fiscal year, and that covers the cost of the DPW facility that was approved several years ago. It increases 2.1 million, next year with the anticipated construction of the south and west fire stations. And as Director Clancy mentioned in her presentation, it's important to note that we're in the preliminary phase of an effort to replace Parker Middle School, which would also be funded through excluded debt. And as the feasibility study advances and better cost estimates are developed, projected debt service will be updated at that time. Non-excluded debt service is $7.8 million this current fiscal year. Next year, we're anticipating it will increase about $263,000 to $8.1 million. Betterment funded debt, which is shown in yellow, is expected to decline to $1.65 million next year. And as you see on the chart, it will actually be retired in total by fiscal year 31. Moving on to employee benefits, our Middlesex County retirement assessment will increase $860,000 for the coming year, or 6.6%. And this amount is based on the most actuarial valuation that was performed for the retirement system. And the analysis projects that the system will be fully funded by the end of 2036. Our health insurance budget for active employees includes an estimated increase of $2.1 million for the coming fiscal year. This is based on current guidance from our insurer and is the result of increasing costs for medical services. We were recently notified about significant premium increases for two Medicaid supplement plans. One plan's increasing 18%, while the second plan is increasing nearly 21%. And this will result in an increase of $587,000 for those plans. I would draw your attention to the bullet that's highlighted at the bottom. The projected increase for fiscal year 27 for both active employee and retiree health insurance is $2.7 million. And that's a very large number. We want to keep that in mind as we get further into the forecast. And then this slide shows a summary of all of the expenditures by function, and you can see that they total an estimated $180 million. And if we pull the revenue and expenditures together, you can see the result in the forecast. And I forwarded past the smaller numbers so this is easy for you to read, and you have those in your packet when you entered tonight. So you can see that for the fiscal year 27 coming up, at this point, I'm projecting a deficit of about $3.25 million. And unfortunately, we're also looking at deficits for the next 4 fiscal years. And you can see they range anywhere from 1.8% up to 9.4% of budget. As we look at this, it's important to note that we're still early in the budget process, and there's a few uncertain budget factors that we'll gain more information on as we get further into this throughout the next 6 months or so. We'll know more on state aid when Governor Healy releases the state budget and state aid figures in late January. Our health insurance premiums for active employees, we will know more mostly around, I would estimate around February. I would want to say that the health insurance premiums that we've experienced this current year in 26 and expect to experience in 27 are the highest that we've seen in several years, and they're really not sustainable because they're far outpacing the rate of inflation. An Neshoba assessment will know more in February. And then I thought it would be helpful to look at inflation since this continues to impact a number of areas in the town operating budget. As this slide shows, the inflation rate has been gradually slowing, but however, the problem is from 21 to 23, we experienced inflation that was well above 2.5%, and that's now resulted in higher costs for personnel, insurance, and other major expenses. So, looking ahead at some of the deficits that we're facing, I thought it would be helpful to take a deeper look at the town's revenue sources so you can gain a better understanding of it. And as we spoke earlier in the presentation, you can see property taxes support over 3/4 of the town's operating budget, and you can see there the numbers. And at the same time, we have to keep in mind that the town's main revenue source is constrained under state law by the limitations of Proposition 2.5. So it's kind of a unique situation. Taxes are our main source of revenue, but the growth in them is constrained. And to kind of help illustrate why we're looking at some of these deficits, this slide kind of shows you some of the reason for this. Basically, we reached a structural imbalance with the operating budget, and by that I mean we're at a situation where our recurring costs are rising faster than our recurring revenue sources. So to give you some real numbers on this, for fiscal year 27, we're anticipating new revenues in total of about $6.6 million. However, when we're just going to look at 3 major cost increases for the coming year. So if we look at the increase for Middlesex retirement, health insurance for active employees and retirees, as well as the anticipated cost for education, which includes the Chelmsford schools and Neshoba, you're looking at $7.26 million. And the important takeaway from this is the increases for these 3 categories alone, you can see more than exceed all the new revenue coming into the town. And that's before we even look at increases for public safety, public works, and many other town departments. So it's one of the challenges we have to work on in the months ahead. Moving on to reserves, our financial plan includes maintaining a healthy stabilization fund and dedicating reserves towards stabilization and extraordinary capital, as you'll see this evening. The town ended fiscal year 25 with just over $4.9 million in free cash, which is an increase of about $192,000 from the prior year. It's important to note free cash includes about $409,000 of school circuit breaker funds, which we'll discuss later in Article 11. So after you deduct the circuit breaker money, free cash actually declined about $217,000 from the prior year. This slide shows a history of free cash over several years, and you can see that this year's free cash remains around 3% of budgeted revenue. Next, we'll look at this general stabilization fund. So this shows the history of the fund. We closed the fiscal year on June 30th with a stabilization balance of $16.74 million, and during that fiscal year, town meeting approved the transfer of over $560,000 of free cash into the fund, and we did not make any withdrawals. I just wanted to mention the transfers out of the fund that you see on the plan for the next 5 fiscal years are there as a contingency only. And then finally, on this chart, we have a history of the stabilization fund as a percentage of total budgeted operating revenue with the current fiscal year shown in red. And our plan is to continue maintaining our cash reserves in a strong position closer to 10% since we'll be facing some significant fiscal challenges in the years ahead. And we all know that stabilization reserves are something that credit rating agencies pay very close attention to, and we'll need to maintain these reserves to retain our AAA bond rating, reduce our borrowing costs, and give us financial flexibility in the years ahead. So that concludes the 5-year forecast.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christine, and thank you, John, for giving the big picture to the town meeting. To bring it into this evening's situation, as John noted, we completed our fiscal year last June 30th with $4.9 million in free cash, which, as John noted, was about 2.9% of our operating budget. Our stabilization fund, $16.75 million, just under 10% of our operating budget. So we're positioned to meet the challenges that are ahead of us, but that doesn't mean they're going to be easy, and you'll be hearing from us in the months ahead as we work on this. So for tonight's meeting, we're not requesting any free cash into the stabilization fund, and basically we're looking to address the town's infrastructure with our free cash to keep chipping away at this structural backlog of infrastructure, as Christine noted, notably in school roofs, and then behind that, notably significant costs with fire apparatus. So that's where we're going. And here are the specifics of the articles that are before you in terms of that allocation of free cash to the sewer construction stabilization fund, road and sidewalk construction, designing the Route 3A roadway project, police station emergency power supply, acoustics to improve this room's sound effects, the switchgear at the Chelmsford Public Schools, the transfer back into the school budget for the school special education tuitions that were closed out by the Massachusetts Department of Revenue, and we'll explain that when we get to that article, and then basically allocating a significant amount of funds into the McCarthy Middle School roof. So again, roughly half of the money we're going to attack the roof in phases, as Christine noted in her presentation. So that, Mr. Moderator, completes the presentation under Article 1 under Town Reports.
Thank you. So we're going to talk about the consent agenda. I will.
Yes, we need the meeting to approve the consent agenda.
Okay.
We'll walk
So
through
we're going to. There's a motion for to approve the consent agenda of Articles 2, 3, 5, and 35. Again, 35 is an article that wasn't going to be acted on in any event. So.
And there'll also be no action under Article 5 as well. So there'll be 2 articles with no action, 5 and 35.
Okay. Okay. So do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Do I have a second? Okay. All in favor? Well, hopefully we'll have a screen. No?
Do you want to vote on that?
If this is an issue, we'll just do it verbally. Verbally. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'm going to ask the Finance Director, John Souza, to present on Articles 2, the consent agenda, which, as I mentioned, are really articles for action under Articles 2 and 3. John Souza, our Finance Director, has direct experience with the Cemetery Commission and also for the Sewer Stabilization Fund. So, John.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Under Article 2, The Cemetery Commission is seeking a transfer of $65,000 from their sale of graves and lots account to the Improvement and Development Fund, and the funds will be used to purchase a new niche wall that you see there for Pine Ridge Cemetery, and the Cemetery Commission is looking to do this to maintain an adequate number of spaces for the interment of cremated remains. And you see a picture in the slide of a typical niche structure. So that's Article 2. And under Article 3, we're seeking a transfer of $195,833 from free cash to the Sewer Construction Stabilization Fund. And what this money represents is this is the amount of interest that we earned on sewer capital improvement funds and sewer betterment funds during fiscal year 25. So what happens is, by law, the interest that we earn on those funds has to be deposited into the general fund during the fiscal year, and then it becomes part of free cash at the closeout of the fiscal year on June 30th. In order for the town to dedicate these monies towards sewer construction debt service costs in future fiscal years, a town meeting vote is required tonight to transfer the funds into the Sewer Construction Stabilization Fund. And this is part of our long-term financial plan to fund sewer debt service from now through fiscal year 31. Oops, went too far. That concludes Article 3. And then, as Town Manager Cohen mentioned, there will be no action under Article 5 or 35.
All right. Any questions or discussion regarding Articles 2 and 3? Because 5 and 35 don't have any action.
Hi, Tom.
Oh,
Romero.
hold on, before I get to that. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Manager. When I've been doing this for a while, I'll get it down straight. Do I have a recommendation to the Finance Committee to these articles?
The Finance Committee unanimously recommends approval of Article 2 with one abstention, unanimously recommends approval of Article 3, and takes no action on Articles 5 or 35.
And does the Select Board have a recommendation?
The Select Board also recommends approval of Article 2 with 3 in favor and 1 abstention, and unanimously recommends approval of Article 3, and no action on Articles 5 and 34.
Thank you. Now you may.
Okay. Tom Romero, Precinct 5. You can start the clock. I just think we should vote no on Article 2. $65,000 for something that's really not necessary. I mean, we just heard that we're going into deficits, and we need to start, tightening our belts and not just approving everything that comes up. And $65,000 is nothing. And I'll bet you 99.9% of the people in the town won't miss this $65,000 wall in the cemetery. I mean, I think we can do without it. And we got to start doing without some things.
Oh, thank you.
I'll do it.
Paul Regazio, Precinct 2. I would appreciate it in the future if the town moderator would allow discussions once the financial report is given. I mean, it's presented, this is what we have, and I would think that we should be able to ask questions about where, about the finance, the projections. I have one simple question. What does the 4.9 million surplus tell us about future budgets?
Mr. Regazio, you have 5 years to ask all the questions of Mr. Souza or the town manager if you wish. We don't do that. We just don't do it.
Well, why not?
Because we don't. That's why. Because these are reports. They're not subject to discussion. Again, he's providing you with information so that you can do your research, and if you have any questions after you do your research, you can make inquiries. That's what all these people here are learning things from these reports, okay? That's why we have important business that we have to get done.
I understand that, but I think the town should
I understand your position.
where the $4.9 million came from.
Again,
was-
we could spend days analyzing all of the 5-year projections and the reports from the Department of Public Works or whatever department issues. We don't do that here, sir.
Well, we should.
No, well, that's fine.
Take care.
You become moderator, and you can change that if town meeting votes in favor of it. Mr.
Jim Clancy, Precinct 2. Mr. Moderator, just to clarify, Article 2, Cemetery Improvement and Development Fund, it's not a funding of free cash or raise an appropriation. It's a use of sale of graves and lots. The specific funds used to fund projects at the cemeteries. The $65,000 is essentially a transfer from that fund for specific use at the cemetery. So we're not using funds that are generally available. We're using funds that are specifically earmarked for the cemetery.
Any more? There being none, we will vote on the consent agenda of Articles 2, 3, 5, and 35. We don't have a timer now, so I will periodically ask if everybody can recognize that their vote has been, it should be on your clicker that your vote has been received.
You can use that timer, John.
I'm sorry?
You can use the timer that you've got for the amendments.
I know I can, but it's easier just to ask people if they've got a problem. So if you look at your clicker and you don't see your name, I'm going to give about 25 or 30 seconds for this to go through, but you should be able to see it.
Kelly Beatty for Chelmsford TeleMedia. Again, we have a new system for keeping track of the votes. Before, you might remember that
Has
we saw
anybody
several sequential screens.
not been able to
Now
to
it's
do their
been
vote?
recast so that you see all of
Okay,
the town meeting
then,
reps
the
in
article
just
passes
2
122
screens, it
in
would
favor,
appear.
1 opposed,
And so we'll
no abstentions.
get used to this.
Oh, I'm sorry, 1 abstention. I got to put my glasses on when it's
This is on the
close.
simplest of motions, the so-called consent agenda, where several
Article
articles
4.
that have
Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
small-
Article
small
4 is a
conference
funding
are
for
brought
collective
together.
bargaining agreements. Under the town's bylaws, on the general government side, we cannot pre-fund operating budgets in advance of a resolution of collective bargaining agreements with the town's employee unions. You've seen at previous town meetings for this current 3-year funding cycle, we've approved collective bargaining agreements for the 3 police unions, for the library union, and the one we have for you this evening is for the Public Safety Dispatchers Union. You can see the amount is $42,485. The agreement is a 3-year bargaining agreement with wage increases of 3%, 3.25, 3.25. We've also increased our shift differential by 50 cents per hour from $1.50 to $2 per hour. And we increased our longevity schedule by $250 and converted to the equivalent percentage of pay. And there were also minor language changes regarding vacation scheduling and holiday scheduling coverage. Basically, this pretty much mirrors the library agreement that you approved at the last town meeting. Obviously, we look at the impacts of our operating budget, but also the wage and labor market that we're in. This agreement has been falls within that. It's been approved by the union and supported by the select board, and so your approval this evening of this amount would make this agreement go into effect. We would obviously provide retroactive pay to the start of this fiscal year back to July 1, and if this is approved, the only outstanding labor agreement in the community right now, and across the entire community, all the schools have reached resolution for the current and next 2 fiscal years with all the school labor unions, from the teachers to the paraprofessionals to the lunch folks. And on the town side, we've reached agreement, as I mentioned earlier, with the police groups, the library, and hopefully this evening the dispatch. And so the only outstanding labor agreement unresolved is with the firefighters union, and that currently is in mediation with the Massachusetts Joint Labor Commission. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
The Finance Committee unanimously recommends approval of Article 4.
Select Board have a recommendation.
The Select Board unanimously recommends approval of Article 4.
Any discussion, questions, concerns, arguments?
Chris Bowman, Precinct 10. My question is, instead of raising taxes, can't this amount, because it's on the lower end, be taken from the general fund?
That is the general fund. The property taxes is the general fund. What are you suggesting? I don't understand.
Okay, maybe I'm not making myself clear. Instead of increasing taxes for the 42,000 for the collective bargaining, the general fund at present has over $16 million in it, right?
That's the stabilization fund, not the general fund.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
My error. So can it be taken from the stabilization fund just in order to not raise taxes? That's the question. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Moderator, that could be the case. If we want to draw down our savings account to expand our current operations, we could do that. Obviously, the answer to your question is yes, but we know where that would bring us in the long term if we start living off of our savings account to spend the day-to-day operations of the town.
Anyone else have any questions? There being none, we'll vote on Article 4 to appropriate $42,485 to fund the Public Safety Dispatchers Union Collective Bargaining Agreement.
Kelly Beatty again, and again, as Town Manager Paul Cohen pointed out, these collective bargaining agreements are often in discussion and negotiation for quite some time, and you can have an idea of what it's going to cost, but you can't actually fund these increases until the agreements are reached, and so they're sort of after the fact. That's why you often
Anyone have a problem with their voting clicker?
That's why you often see
Are we all done?
An agreement, say, in fiscal 26,
122 in
reaching
favor,
back into
4
fiscal
opposed, no
25 to retroactively offer a pay increase.
Article 6.
Yeah, Article 6, Mr. Moderator, and several of the next upcoming articles pertain to our capital infrastructure. I'm going to invite our Public Works Director, Christine Clancy, to address this and some of the next articles because they fall within the realm of Public Works.
Thank you. Article 6 is a request town transfer $1 million from free cash to fund the roadway and sidewalk construction program, including all incidental and related expenses. So this $1 million is necessary to continue our annual spending of $3 million. I did focus this for paving just because of looking at our current backlog of what we're seeing as our list for the next year's paving, 2026 paving. It amounts to just about $3.2 million. This funding is comprised of, as I presented earlier, various funds. So we have the $1.7 million that comes in from Chapter 90, and then also we will be seeking capital as we move forward to next year, and then this $1 million would help fund that, really to bring it close to $3 million. And it's necessary to continue our roadway paving program as we have. We've been targeting about 8 to 10 miles of paving a year. So we do have a backlog of $75 million. This goes back to a few years ago where we had a pavement database put together, and so we have a whole database that rates our roadway system, and in that it calculates what based on the current cost, what that cost of roadway restoration. So it's about $75 million. We are going to look at that again this winter. If anything, it might be greater than that just with the costs, but it's something that we'll look at again. That's both for paving and for sidewalk in terms of backlog. It's 190 miles of roadway. Of sidewalk, we have 48 miles of sidewalk, 27 of that of which we plow after a snowstorm. We call it priority sidewalk, especially closest to schools. And then we do have through our sidewalk master plan, 12 miles of proposed sidewalk that we are advancing towards. I do not show paving tonight just because we have such a backlog of roadway. We are advancing sidewalk projects in some other, we're doing Turnpike Road sidewalk right now. We have Main Street we talked about. Also, we're looking at 110 with the state, Vinyl Square, so there's other sidewalk improvements happening, just not through this program for right now, this request. This pavement list is preliminary. We do look at it further this winter, and then we do publish it in the spring. So, thank you.
Thank you. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
Finance Committee unanimously recommends approval of Article 6.
Select Board have a recommendation.
The Select Board unanimously recommends approval of Article 6.
Questions?
Chris Bowman, Precinct 10. I have two questions. For the sidewalk construction, is this for new sidewalks or for an overhaul of existing sidewalks?
So our roadway and sidewalk program includes both at times, but I would say that the sidewalk construction for this is really associated with new sidewalk. It follows our paving program. So an example, just 2 years ago, Parkhurst Road, that was, we were repaving Parkhurst, but when we added in new sidewalk. Old Westford Road, we added in sections of new sidewalk. Fletcher Street was new sidewalk. So we typically pair our roadway and our sidewalk as part of the roadway program is really complementary to the roadway program. As you know, look at Main Street, that could be $3 million just for Main Street. We need to focus $3 million for funds all across the town. So it really, as project gets so large, that becomes really its own project. So a new sidewalk segment that would be costly would likely be its own project.
Thank you. And the second question is, the DPW presented a report to the Select Board in, I think it was February 2022, basically saying that about half of the roadway system was below average at that time. Can you update us on where that stands at this moment?
So that report, too, that was in 2022. We have updated our master database since that program. Each roadway segment gets a rating, anywhere from 0 to 100. So 0 is you're driving on no asphalt, dirt road, potholes. It's the worst road you could drive on. 100 is a rating of a newly paved roadway. And so the average roadway is, about 76, 77 as a PCI index. And if you go back a few years ago, we were down to like 73. So that number is increasing. I don't have, I guess, the distribution. We are going to be updating that distribution this winter, and we'll be presenting that in March. But it is, we do have a large backlog of roads that have, require pavement reclamation. They've failed below the subgrade, but the average roadway has a rating of about 77, which 77 is you haven't lost the road, you can still mill it. So I guess I can't really speak to that. I think that 2022 report just didn't maybe have as much data as we have today.
Okay, so it sounds like the information from this report, third question. It sounds like the information from this report has been integrated in the overall DPW roadway program, right?
Yes, so the 2022 report, we did look at it. We have enhanced it, and I would say amended it along the way, but with reason. We had reasons, depending on the road needs a certain treatment, different treatment, or sometimes you have to delay a roadway because a water main has to go down the road. So there's various reasons. But yes, we did take that data, but I would say that is old data now because we have so much new data that we're moving forward with our new pavement management database.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
George Zaharos, Precinct 2. Quick question. Before you do the paving, do you check the underground utilities, the sewer, the water, electricity, whatever is underground, so that way you don't have to tear up the street after you paved it?
So we do send a notification. This actually is right around this time of year. A letter goes out. So this list right here that you see, a letter will go out this winter to all the utility companies saying that we will be doing these streets. We've actually already reached out to utilities too to get some feedback, and we actually tweaked this list. If you had this list that was presented, I think, to the Finance Committee was slightly different. There was 1 or 2 street changes. So yes, that has been done. And then we do check the drainage. We check the sewer. The water water mains and the electrical, the gas, that information is, really has to be provided by those utility companies. So but unless they say otherwise, we do advance. If they do say they have planned work, then sometimes that might delay our project unless they think they can get in beforehand.
Go ahead.
Bruce Rosen, Precinct 5. Question, when putting in new roads, do you take into account management of rainwater to storm collectors? In that on a hill, for instance, there's a lot of rainwater taking away soil, and then in the spring, you come around and fill in the ruts that came. So is there any stormwater management put into, given a particular road's needs? That's the question.
The answer is yes. So when we do a roadway, we actually do a lot of this design in-house with our engineering division, and they like to go out, like the day like today would be perfect to go out and see how the rain comes off the roadway. Sometimes, obviously we can't fix every problem, so sometimes it was like, well, it would be great if we had a whole new set of infrastructure, but we do try to address it as best as we can, or we also look at all catch basins to see if they have to be adjusted, retrofitted. Sometimes it's adding a crown or adjusting the crown of a roadway. So the answer is yes, but we sometimes can't solve every single problem. I guess we don't want to worsen the condition, and we want to improve the condition.
Yeah, I see the result is that in the spring they have to fill in the runoff, the ruts that formed by the water. It seemed like we could have saved money by just putting in a berm or whatever. Anyways, that's my comment.
Yeah, so I will say we do add sections of berm as part of it. So if there's berm, but you have to be careful because the berm is pushing water to some point. So you have to make sure that it has a point and you're not making it exacerbating an issue downstream. So yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? There being none, we vote on Article 6 to appropriate $1 million from free cash to fund roadway and sidewalk construction.
Kelly Beatty again, and of course, $1 million sounds like an awful lot of money for roadway work, but as DPW Director Christine Clancy has pointed out, the cost of redoing a road is enormous on a per mile basis, and the town has, I think, 190 miles of roadway that some of which is in better shape than others, as you saw during her presentation before town meeting began.
Okay, we've been doing about 121 every 122. Anyone else hasn't voted?
As you can see, there's a total of 122 people voting, which is a quorum, but suggested a lot of town meeting reps are missing or just haven't been elected.
No abstentions. Article 7.
So Article 7 is a vote to transfer $300,000 from free cash to fund the preliminary designs for the reconstruction of Route 3A from Technology Drive to Richardson Road and for the Vinyl Square intersection safety improvements, including all incidental and related expenses. So Article 7, this is a request for $300,000, and we really paired this as part of two projects. The first project is the Route 3 reconstruction. This is between Technology Drive and Richardson Road. This is Mass DOT right-of-way, but the way this project really initiated is that we just, looking at the crash history at the intersection of Princeton Street and Route 3A and Richardson Road and Route 3A, we wanted to make some improvements to those intersections. We did apply for a grant. At that point, the state said, well, this is really state infrastructure primarily, so we'll potentially the TIP process. So we did advance the beginning phases of the assessment for to get on the TIP. To get on the state TIP, you really have to go through their Mass DOT process. You have to go through get the survey, you have to do what they call ICE analysis, intersection control evaluation at different levels, and this it's a lot just to get to that 25%. So we did initial assessment, doing some traffic assessments, survey, other initial data gathering. There was a July 8th public input session held at the police station that was well attended, just to show some of the potential, the findings and potential, just where we are today with the design. We still have a long road ahead of us to advance the 25% design. So that is really this request to advance it to the 25% design. And then at the 25% design, the intent is that the state would take that over, advance it to 100% design, go out to bid, and then construct it on their tip, it would be they would be paying for it. It is not on a current, so they do publish their 5-year tip, so it's not on a current tip, so it would be after FY30. The second project, which I think is more maybe familiar to you because it has been in talks for several years, and we've advanced that project to so we have submitted a 25% design package to the state, but they still have to go through a whole 25% design reconciliation. There's also a pretty significant utility. They require subsurface utility investigations that we'll have to do. So that's also part of this request. Total for this is $300,000, but we also are talking to the state just to also make sure that they're taking these projects on so they can complete them for the times that we're anticipating. This is tentatively on the FY28 tip, Vinyl Square intersection, and this is really just the entire intersection, the final square intersection, which has really 6 legs coming into it. This just shows a graphic of the 2 projects. So Vinyl Square is that would be the first project, and then the second project that we're just beginning, or just prior to 25%, extends just past Richardson Road and through to Technology Drive. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation on this?
The Finance Committee unanimously recommends approval of Article 7.
Select Board have a recommendation.
The Select Board unanimously recommends approval of Article 7.
Any questions?
George Zaharos, Precinct 2. Will there be another public hearing on this?
Yes. So for Vinyl Square, as you go through the 25% design, there's meetings in-house between really with the state and then the state with us, but there is a official 25% design public hearing. For Richardson Road, we're not, or between the other project, we're not even at 25% design, but yes, there will definitely be at least one, there could even be more, input sessions.
Will direct abutters be notified in writing this time?
For the public hearing, it's required, yes.
Okay, because the other one wasn't notified in writing.
That was just an input session. It was just really to the community, but a design public hearing, it will notify all abutters.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Virginia Crocker Timmons, Precinct 3. I'm also the chair of the Vinyl Square Strategic Action Plan Committee. You can start the clock. The Vinyl Square Strategic Action Plan Committee has been tracking both of these projects very closely with DPW, and we did host at least one of the public input sessions. It wasn't a hearing. These are 2 projects that we find are very critical for the traffic safety, bicycle and pedestrian safety in the North Village and the surrounding area. The committee did take a formal vote and unanimously recommends approval of this article to town meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rick Mahoney, Precinct 2. Got one question, and I may be out here quickly trying the answer. At the public input session back in July, it was my understanding that this was going to be funded about $7 or $8 million federally. Is that correct?
It's through the state tip, so it would be the state.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Chris Bowman, Precinct 10. Do you know how much roadway is involved for the entire improvement?
When you say roadway, what do you mean? Dollar? What do you?
No. I mean the actual distance. How many miles?
I mean, this is just, I think, I don't have the length right here. I mean, the intersection itself, it's really just that intersection and probably going 2 or 3 feet outside of those intersections. So the length of that intersection is probably, I don't know, 600 feet or so. So it's a pretty short distance, but it's a lot going on. And plus there's traffic signal, looking at traffic signals, it's pedestrian improvements, bicycle lanes. So it's pretty, I guess we don't look at linear foot of roadway because it's beyond just a roadway project. When I say it's just like similar to our, I can't compare it to our roadway program. It's much more significant improvements.
And do you know approximately the distance from Technology Drive to Richardson Road?
I mean, I would say less than a quarter of a mile. My guess, I don't have I'd have to quickly check it on.
I thought it was much longer than that. And one
I could check it on Google in a minute.
I'm just curious to see, because it's pretty much a straightaway.
I would say, I guess between 0.25 and half a mile.
I'm just trying to get a better idea for what's going on. And it seems that the design cost is rather high. Is this typical for this type of improvement involving an intersection and basically a straightaway?
So the reason why this cost is so much higher than when we talk about the roadway paving program is because this design cost goes through the Massachusetts TIP process. So they have a very descriptive process with workbooks required to be submitted. So really the cost to have a project on the TIP, so the construction cost is probably similar to what we might see, but the cost to get there in the design cost is I don't want to say excessive, but it's high. And so typically you look at design fees 10 to 15%, 10 to 20%. It could be closer to 20% here.
So this is considered reasonable, essentially.
It's typical to the TIP process. And that's one reason why, honestly, with Main Street, we were thinking with Main Street, do we go through the TIP process? And we could do the design in-house. And also with the TIP, you have to have a designated bike lane. You have to have 6-foot sidewalks. They require you to go through that process to try to fit that cross-section into your roadway. You might have to do takings to do that. And so for Main Street, we're looking at a different approach. But this right-of-way is owned by the state, so they have to, most Route 3A is owned by them in Princeton. So we really have to go through their process.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Apparently no one else has anything to discuss, so we will vote on Article 7, which is to appropriate $300,000 from free cash to fund the preliminary designs of the Route 3A reconstruction of Vinyl Square intersection safety improvements. And while you're voting, I'd like to thank our Venture Scouts for selling the snacks in the back. They will be shutting down in about 5 minutes. Or 10. If you want to get something, please do it now, after you vote.
As you can see from the discussion about this intersection, it's a for those who've driven through it, it's a very messy
looks
little
like everyone has voted. 123 votes in favor.
It looks like it will go forward without any problem.
No abstentions. Article 8.
Article 8 is for the town to transfer $100,000 from free cash for the replacement and installation of the police department emergency power supply system at 2 Old North Road, including any incidental and related expenses. Sorry, I went too far. Whoop. There we go. Okay. So for this $100,000 request, this really is critical to the function to support the police station. It is a 24/7 facility. It is not the emergency power supply for the entire building. This is for the function of the computer system. So if we lose power here, let's say, we would lose power, everything would turn off, and then a generator would kick on, and then everything would come back on. At the police station, we need the power for the computers to be constant. And so there's this uninterrupted power supply system that provides that. So if power goes off, there's no flickering off of the power and then the generator kicking in and then that delay of it turning back on. It needs to be uninterrupted. And so that system really has reached the end of its useful life. Unfortunately, we have had some outages in the past year, amounting to about overall $25,000 in repairs. When it does go down, we replace the batteries, and we're at a point right now where we need to replace the system, which is estimated to be about $100,000, including coordinating with a consultant. So that's it.
Thank you. Finance Committee have a recommendation.
The Finance Committee unanimously recommends approval of Article 8.
Does the Select Board have a recommendation?
The Select Board unanimously recommends approval of Article 8.
Any questions?
Tom Amaro, Precinct 5. Just a question. You mentioned batteries. I'm just curious. This isn't a diesel-powered generator, or is it actually
No,
a
this
battery?
is all battery system. The building does have a generator. This is particularly for the computer system. So if someone's calling 911 and needs to get through the dispatch, that there's no delay in the event, especially, and a lot of times this happens during a storm event where we have, there are 24/7 facilities. So this is a battery system. We are evaluating the best option for replacement, and so that's part of the process, is just to make sure that we're not just replacing in kind. Maybe that is the right solution, but also if there's anything different. But my understanding...
Solid-state batteries, I suggest, or lithium ferrous phosphate. And do you charge the batteries from the grid and keep them at 100%, say, so that when you need to
So that's
use
something
them?
that we'll look into. These batteries, I guess I don't want to, I'm not going to, I don't know that level of detail of it, but we will look to see how the most efficient way to maintain these batteries. I do know that they're very expensive to replace, so yes, to keep them charged. We don't have solar, we'd have to look at that.
Yeah. Is there solar?
There's no solar right now, so we'd have to look at that as part of, probably as the roof project, which is not slated right now.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? There being none. All in favor of Article 8 to appropriate $100,000 from free cash for the replacement of the police station emergency power supply system?
Reminder for those who might have tuned in late, we're going through a series of articles ending in Article 12 having to do with how to spend $4.9 million of free cash that is in the coffers of the town after the conclusion of fiscal year 25.
Everyone's voted? The vote is unanimous, 123 in favor of, no opposition or abstentions.
And this series of articles will spend down that money. It's not going into the stabilization fund. It's going to be spent
Article
for
9
these
is to
projects.
So town transfer $45,000 from free cash for the purchase and installation of acoustical improvements at the senior center, including any incidental and related expenses. So this request is really for this space right here, as the acoustics in here could be improved. There's a lot of events here. There's town meeting here, and there's other events throughout the year held here. We did complete with the senior center, we did complete an acoustical study throughout the building, particularly in this space. And it is a larger need than just some of the smaller conference rooms downstairs. And so this is just a preliminary study performed by Kavanaugh Tachi this past January. And what they're recommending is placing some acoustical sound absorption at the ceiling, so above you, and then also in the back room. And that would help with some of the sound coming from this area. The thought would be that we would install this probably over this winter, and hopefully you can tell a difference next spring town meeting when you would see it. There's a lot of noise, the kitchen area, the air handlers, so we do see the need just because this is a large venue for a lot of our town meeting and other events.
Thank you. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
The Finance Committee unanimously recommends approval of Article 9.
The Select Board have a recommendation.
The Select Board unanimously recommends approval of Article 9.
Any questions, discussion, debate?
Nancy Arroway, Precinct 8. You can start the clock. I agree and acknowledge that this room needs acoustic control. However, there was a lot of expense put into building this really gorgeous ceiling. And I truly hate to see it covered with acoustic tiles, which, in my opinion, are bloody ugly. I would encourage you to vote no on this, but contact the Chelmsford Quilt Guild and ask them if they would do a community project to create some quilted hangings for the ceiling, to hang down from the ceiling instead, at no cost to the town.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Bob Schneider, Precinct 9. I'm the driving force for this article here. I started about a year ago, political situation. I got the study done. Study's in my name. It's available. The ceiling, you cannot hang things because of the sprinkler heads. I suppose we could redo the plumbing, but that might be more expensive. So I urge you to vote for this article. The Council on Aging Board, which I'm the chairman of, is in favor of it. I'm here at the Senior Center a lot. It's seniors that have a hard time hearing. You have a hard time hearing now, so I urge you to vote for it. It's going to really improve the use of this room.
Thank you.
Virginia Timmons, Precinct 3. You can start the clock. I'm in favor of this article, and I had talked to Bob also about it when he was formulating it. I know I personally have a hard time with the acoustics in this room, but I wanted to just offer you another personal perspective. My mother used to be in one of the programs here at the Senior Center, and when I would come and sit right next to her in this room during lunch, she could not hear a thing that was going on. And for a building and a facility and an organization that's serving our elderly community, it's a very isolating experience when you're sitting in a room full of people and you can't hear your daughter who's sitting right next to you. So I do think something needs to be done in this room, and it needs to be done urgently, not just for town meeting, but for the people that the center serves. Thank you.
Thank you. No one else? All right. So we're going to vote on Article 9 to appropriate $45,000 from free cash for acoustical improvements to the Senior Center. Has everyone voted? Are they all satisfied with their votes? Okay. Article passes 103 in favor, 16 opposed, and 4 abstentions. Article 10.
Article 10 is to transfer $400,000 from free cash for the rehabilitation of the Chelmsford Public Schools switchgear, including any incidental and related expenses. So all of our buildings school buildings are 50 to 70 years old, and a lot of the switchgear systems or panel board systems are original to the building. What's pictured here is the South Row building, and those panels are original to the building, so from 1965. We have started, as per recommendations from one of our consultants, going back several years ago, they recommended that, really the switchgear is really the heart of electrical system in the building. That what it is that's what steps down the electricity as it comes into the building and distributes it throughout the school. If that goes down, you have no school. It's critical, and it's also not easy just to turn back on it. It's really so critical infrastructure. And so we have started the replacement or rehabilitation, I call it, because it's not just full replacement necessary of the switchgear system. The boards you see, those get replaced, but the switchgear system really gets it's more of a rehabilitation. We've started this past summer successfully at the McCarthy School, which is our oldest school building. And then we'll be advancing that, so that with this vote, we'd be advancing it to the South Row School, and also then hopefully to the high school, really continuing to all the schools in the next several years, just because it's such a need. We want to focus on the South Row School because we have so much work occurring over the next year at the South Row School. So we presented about the South Row roof, which does require reconnection of the electrical panels. So we want to make sure when we're reconnecting those in, that we have good infrastructure to connect it to. Also, we'll be doing another ceiling replacement project as part of that school. So we want to just make sure as we're making those electrical connections that we're connecting again to the sound infrastructure. So the focus will be South Row and then the high school, and then there'll be requests, as we go into the elementary schools as well in future years.
Thank you. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
The Finance Committee unanimously recommends approval of Article 10.
Select Board have a recommendation.
The Select Board unanimously recommends approval of Article 10.
Anyone have any questions?
Badru Plippen, Precinct 11. Will the new switch gear also have a lifetime expectancy of 50 to 70 years?
So, I mean, the switch gears that we currently have are being rehabilitated. They're being rehabilitated, and so no, I guess the switchgear system themselves, to actually replace them and upgrade them could be millions of dollars. So this is just a rehabilitation, and it's like if you go for a tune-up for your car, so you could get another 10, 20 years out of it. And so as you continually maintain it, the chances of existing or functioning is I guess if you don't maintain them, then they might fail. So our goal is to continue to maintain them. The panel boards here, yes, those should have a life expectancy. I don't know the exact life expectancy, but 30, 50 years. We usually typically design for 50 years. But the switchgear, it is a switchgear rehabilitation program because it's going in and rehabilitating the existing system. So it still is an older system. They basically have to go in, they clean it, and then if there are any parts, those parts don't currently exist. They have to make those or retrofit those parts. A full replacement of a switchgear system, you're talking about knocking down knocking down walls. It's millions of dollars, and we know we can't do that. These are older buildings. So this is a switchgear rehabilitation project. So it's necessary, and it should buy us years. I can't say if it's 5, 10, 20 years.
Okay, no guarantees beyond 5 years. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. We're going to vote on Article 10 to appropriate $400,000 from free cash for the rehabilitation of the Chelmsford Public Schools switchgears. Anyone else not voted yet? Okay. Then the article passes 120 in favor, no opposition, no abstentions. Article 11.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. We'll give Christine a break for an article. Article 11 pertains to the school department operating budget. We're seeking a $408,963 transfer from free cash to the payment of the public schools' special education tuitions. Whoops. Where were they? Go back to the slide. Well, this is basically an accounting effort. Back in fiscal year 24, in May, the Commonwealth provided an advance payment of this dollar amount to the school districts across the state as part of the circuit breaker relief program during a challenging time in school finance. And how this program works is you get the reimbursement for your costs in the program, and you're allowed to carry them forward for 1 year in the program. So when the school department prepared its budget for the current fiscal year, the advance payment, keyword being advance payment for fiscal 25 that was received in May of 24, was carried forward into the 26 budget. And therefore that had the full amount. When the town accountant closed out and submitted our balance sheet at the end of the fiscal year several weeks ago in August, the Massachusetts Department of Revenue, a different state agency, closed the account out because it was considered received in fiscal year 24, and therefore the 1 year in their mind carried to fiscal year 25. So this creates a funding shortfall in the current school's budget. So the warrant article basically is restoring the intent of the funds, which is to provide for the 1 year carryover for advanced funds that were received in 24 that would be carried over in 25 to it's carried over into 26 to fund this cost in the current school year. So if this article is not approved, then we're going to have a deficit of $400,000 in the school department's operations. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
The Finance Committee unanimously recommends approval of Article 11.
Does this Select Board have a recommendation regarding this?
The Select Board unanimously recommends approval of Article 11.
Okay, any questions? There being none, we will vote on Article 11, which is to appropriate $408,963 from free cash to the Chelmsford Public Schools for payment of out-of-district special education tuition. Okay, looks like everyone's voted. The article passes 122 in favor, 1 opposed, no abstentions. Article 12.
Article 12 is to transfer $2,484 million and $842 from free cash for the replacement of portions of the McCarthy Middle School roof, including any incidental and related expenses. So this is a request for essentially about just shy of $2.5 million for roof replacement at McCarthy Roof. So over here on the right, you can see that this is I call it the phase 1. The McCarthy Roof is such a large area that it is going to have to be phased under various projects. Just last year, or the past 2 years, we have allocated $1.25 million to this project. We have hired a consultant, and we have really reached the schematic design level. This area, so what you're seeing right here, the roof 1 area and the roof 3 area, that is included in this one phase. The roof 2 area that is pictured as the white roof, that is still in need of a replacement, but not quite yet. And so that will be, that area, that roof, the white roof is 22 years old. It will be a future funding request. The roof area 1 and 3 is our current request. This roof 1, phase 1 area, this is really comprised of the cafeteria, the large gym, the locker rooms, the small gym at the McCarthy Roof, and modular units as well. This just shows you from the schematic report a leak history. So the roof is largely a built-up roof system, 24 years old, and below that there is an original roof system that was installed when the building was installed. And then the roof area K is a membrane roofing that's about 25 years old. This just shows areas of leaks. So pretty significant in the gym areas, in the modular, and in the locker room areas, some active leaks. So it really, I guess, evidence that this roof has reached the end of its useful life. So where we are right now in the design, we have completed schematic design, and then looking at those costs. Right now, we would love to have this project completed next summer, which is why we're before you tonight. Looking at the costs, it's too late to ask for this funding for next spring, so it's really a critical request, and why we really ask for so much of this from free cash to go towards this project. So this project, this phase 1 project, is estimated to cost $3.75 million, about $93 a square feet. The scope is just not just removing of the existing roof system as pictured. It's a built-up roof system. All that gravel has to be taken off the roof. All the insulation below it. There's also an existing layer below that too that has to be removed. When you're removing and resetting or replacing the roof, you have all the electrical, HVAC. This roof, and just to also go back to look at this slide, has solar panels on it. These solar panels are about 10, 12 years old. Similar to the Southwell roof, as our plan is to remove them and replace them, and that is a cost that we're still evaluating. Worst case, we could always put on the solar panels at a later time, but if we can fit into the project cost, that's what we're still trying to. Right now, we could remove and reset them, but to remove and replace them would be an additional cost, and so that might be a capital request for next spring. We're currently evaluating that. The goal is to really get a new roof put on this building next summer. To go back to this slide, I just want to show you a cross-section. This is the existing cross-section and the proposed cross-section. It is a tapered roof insulation to have drainage go to certain areas of the roof. The existing roof has up to about has really minimal insulation. That's how it was 25 years ago. With the new stretch code requirements, minimum insulation is 5.5 inches, but also you need to have positive slope. So we have cross sections here of up to 12 inches of insulation. When you add the insulation, you also get into more extensive masonry repairs, so it just becomes a much larger project. So we do see that there's potentially additional costs just because of having to meet some of these new code requirements. And like I said, so the goal of this phase 1 project is to replace the roof. We're hopeful in the $3.75 million if we can fit some of the solar panel replacement, and we're still evaluating that and some of the masonry repairs. So there potentially could be a FY27 capital request to do some of those additional project components. Let's see if there's anything else to mention here. I think that's it. Thank you.
Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
The Finance Committee unanimously recommends approval of Article 12.
Select Board have a recommendation.
The Select Board unanimously recommends approval of Article 12.
Any questions? Discussion? There being none, we'll now vote on Article 11 to appropriate Article 12 to appropriate $2,484,842 from free cash for the replacement of portions of the McCarthy Middle roof.
And of course, this is the big one in terms of this whole sequence of articles to spend down the free cash that the town has, $4.9 million, this being $2.5 million of that. Has DPW
Has everyone
Director
voted the way they want to vote?
mentioned at the beginning of this meeting, these roofs are very expensive to replace, and there are many needs in town
Final
going
vote.
forward.
123 in favor, 1 opposition, no abstentions. Article 13.
All right, thank you. Article 13 is a vote to town transfer $500,000 from the Sewer Enterprise Fund retained earnings for the design and construction of drainage improvements along Westford Street, including any incidental and related expenses. Oops, sorry, I went too fast there. Apologize. So for this, as I said earlier in my presentation earlier tonight, sewer and storm drainage projects sometimes can be intertwined. So this is a drainage improvement project, but it is proposed to be paid for by the sewer enterprise fund or sewer division. And so what this project is extending 600 linear feet of drainage along Westford Street. So really from the center up towards, it's about Arlene's Way or 40 Westford Street. Going back a couple years ago, the town did conduct a private inflow removal program where, especially for sump pumps, if people had sump pumps on their properties, we wanted to know, because really as we see in our sewer capacity constraints, when we have a rainier season, that's where we have excessive flows that go to Duck Island, and that's where we exceed our capacity. This year we've had a drought, and with that drought, our sewer flows are down. So there's a direct correlation between inflow, which is basically added rain, it's rainwater that's going to the sewer system that should be going out to someone's yard or out to a storm drain system. And so that's inflow removal. And then infiltration, and I know we've been previous articles where, infiltration gets into pipe joints or into manholes. So we do try to seal that. So that's a separate program for infiltration removal that we do in-house. But we have identified some private inflow as part of that program. And so we have some other drainage improvements along this section of Westford Street. So this is really to extend the drainage, the 650 feet from Worthen to just shy of Arlene's Way. It will, with this program, will collect 25,000 gallons a day of private inflow from sump pumps and then redirect them to a storm drain, the new storm drain system. It will also address some other local drainage concerns. There's catch basins that aren't really connected well, I would say, to our systems. We want to improve those connections. And really, this is a critical need. We are at a point where we're at capacity, and we're trying to find ways to remove this inflow. And as part of this program that we had 200 people sign up for this program, and of that, I think it was like 17 people across town really qualified, where we found they had inflow that we could potentially correct. So this is really that first project to advance that. And as part of that, because you are not supposed to have sump pumps or roof drains connected to the sewer, but just to try to have that collaboration, we did say that if you participate in this program, again, it was about 2 years ago, then we would basically work. We promise a way to remove the inflow, and really that capacity does go. So the reason why this is a sewer project is because that capacity that we're taking from this project goes back into our sewer capacity, and it can be given to, or we sell it now through our sewer capacity program to another development or another need. We would design this probably over the next year, and one other thing is that the Westford Street Bridge is under construction. So the reason why we threw this on tonight and not in the spring is because we want to do this design and we want to do this work next year because traffic volumes are low right now on Westford Street. So we want to do that ahead of the return of the Westford Street traffic or the bridge completion. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
The Finance Committee unanimously recommends approval of Article 13.
School Committee, the Select Board have a recommendation.
The Select Board unanimously recommends approval of Article 13.
Anyone have any questions? There being none, we will vote on Article 13, which is to appropriate $500,000 from the Sewer Enterprise Fund retained earnings for the design and construction of draining improvements along Westford Street. Okay, has everyone voted the way they want to vote? Double check. Okay. Article passes 119 in favor, 2 opposed, 1 abstention. Article 14.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. We're past the financial articles. This is an authorization article for the Select Board to enter into a lease agreement in excess of 5 years in accordance with state law and our town bylaw. And this is for the municipal parking lot in Vinyl Square, which you'll see on the next slide. And we own a 0.25 acre parcel at 30 Vinyl Square. That's the yellow piece across from Rosie's Diner that you see in the slide. The magenta or maroon piece adjacent to it is privately owned land that is owned by the building that, to the right of the two colored squares. That 15 years ago, the town entered into a lease back in 1996, 30 years ago in 1996, for the sum of $1. And basically, the property owner at the time provided this 30-year period to the community. What the town does is the town performs snow removal and basic maintenance on the parking area. in order to, again, address parking needs in Vinyl Square. The property has been sold since a couple years ago, and we have spoken with the new property owner, and the new property owner has agreed to enter into a new 30-year agreement with the same terms and conditions. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
The Finance Committee unanimously recommends approval of Article 14.
Select Board have a recommendation.
The Select Board unanimously recommends approval of Article 14.
Any questions?
Virginia Crocker Timmons, Precinct 3. I'm also the chair of the Vinyl Square Strategic Action Plan Committee. You can start the clock. Parking in this area and the use of it that we've enjoyed for the last 30 years is something that we hear regularly about. The committee did take a formal vote and unanimously recommends approval of this article to town meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Badri Uplivan, Precinct 11. Mr. Moderator, through you to the presenter, are we allowed to build anything on that parking lot?
No.
Absolutely nothing?
Absolutely, positively nothing.
So
it's a parking lot. It's the lease is for a parking area.
So I can't put a solar panel-based parking lot cover over there working with the owner?
Not on private property, no.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anybody else? There being none, we will vote on Article 14, which to authorize the Select Board to enter into a lease for a period in excess of 5 years for the public or municipal parking purposes on a portion of the property at 40 Vinyl Square.
Chelmsford TeleMedia. This will conclude the sequence of budgetary-related articles on the warrant. I predict that we'll jump to the end to take care of 2 or 3 lesser articles and save all of the ones having to do with the new zoning proposal
Everyone
from the
voted
planning
the way
board
they want to vote? Check your
until Thursday night.
stickers. Okay, the article passes 122 in favor, 1 opposed, and we are now going to go to Article, actually we're going to skip ahead to Article 28, correct?
Can we go to 32?
Can we go to 32?
Yeah. Basically, we deal with non-zoning at this point.
Oh, okay, fine. Does anybody have a problem with jumping into 32 instead of 26? Apparently not.
Okay.
Yes. Well, I just asked if anybody had any opposition. Nobody said a word. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Article 32 is an article brought forth by the Arts and Technology Education Fund Committee, and I'm going to turn the podium over to the chair of that committee, Evelyn Thorin, to explain the purpose of this article.
What I'd like to do is just take a few minutes in order to give you an overview of what the Arts and Technology Education Fund Committee actually does and what it is. It's been probably 2 decades since we gave any kind of updates with regard to the committee, and this is a good opportunity. This fund was established in 1996 by this body, and it created a bylaw. Bylaw has been very good in order to keep us on the straight and narrow, but it also has been very restrictive. Over the years, we have come before you with some changes, as we are this evening. The purpose of the Arts and Technology Education Fund is to add finances, add money, add funds to the Chelmsford Public Schools. It doesn't add to the budget, and it doesn't become subject to being funded by the budget in the future. It is to enhance the current curriculum of the system, and the applications are made by the staff. We've also added clubs this past year to see whether or not there'd be any interest in the short term as to extend how the funds will be expended. You may ask, how do we get our funds? So, not to bring up a bad subject, but when you get your tax bill, the top of it is a tear-off. And that tear-off, when you do that, you can fill it in and you can make a donation to the Arts and Technology Education Fund. So some of you may say, well, my mortgage company handles that. Well, that does not preclude you to say, I can never give to the fund. You can write a check to the town of Chelmsford, and in the memo on your check at the bottom, you can say Arts and Technology Education Fund and give any kind of a donation that you would like. We did encourage people to round up on their tax bill, and you can put that difference. One year when I reviewed, we had 35 cents. We had $5.12. So people were rounding up to an even dollar amount, and all of that adds up over time. We do not have any particular fundraising events. We've tried some in the past, but it didn't seem to pan out for us. If you have someone that really loves education, and when you want to give a donation, you could give it to the Arts and Technology Education Fund. One of the co-founders of this committee, George Ripson, when he passed a couple of years ago, there were many people that made donations in his memory to the Arts and Technology Education Fund. We also have a program for parents. Instead of there's a restriction on how much money that you can give teachers. Many parents have made donations in a teacher's name to the Arts and Technology Education Fund. We send a thank you to the donor, and then we notify the teacher that money has been in the fund in their name. So there are different ways that we've been trying to be creative, other than just that one tax checkoff, and it also is in your excise tax. So if you came here in a vehicle, somewhere along the line, you will see one of those tear-offs on one of your bills. One of the ways that we have been accountable for the funds being expended is that we require a project summary sheet. That project summary sheet has several questions on it, and the staff member that has received one of the awards fills in that summary sheet, submits it to the committee, and they have to do that if they want any other future awards being made to them. We want to know that they've done something with it, what they've done, where it goes, and that's the accountability. And then if any of you ask us as a committee what is going on with the funds, we have those sheets that if you want to review them, you can. So we want to have that transparency in terms of whatever money that we give out. And that brings us to our application process. As you can see by the original bylaw, it does restrict us considerably. It restricts us in the time we can have the application, and we have that 3-month window. That money is also to be spent in the next academic year. And over the past 29 years that we have existed, many times staff members have said to us, we really would like to have the money in the year that we're teaching rather than trying to think about it in the future. Because sometimes there's transfers within the school department of teachers. So if they do that, the money does not follow them into wherever they go. It then will stay within the line item in the Chelmsford Public School budget. And then that money then comes back to the municipal side of the budget because it hasn't been expended. So we are back and forth to make sure that we know where all of the finances are going. So by taking the wording out in terms of from January to March and all of the other that you see that's crossed out there, now we have a lot of flexibility. We are not as restricted. Not only are we not restricted in terms of time frame, we could even be able to have more applications at different points in the year. so that it will meet more of the needs of the staff and become flexible for the community and the usage thereof. So I have finished. And I hope that you will vote for this. And my committee has done an awful lot of work trying to make sure that we do what is best for the Chelmsford Public Schools with the money that we have been given by the town.
Thank you. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
The Finance Committee unanimously recommends approval of Article 32.
Select Board have a recommendation.
The Select Board unanimously recommends approval of Article 32.
Any questions, discussion, debate?
Hi there, Ginger Skoog, Precinct 5. I just have a couple of questions about the ATEF. First of all, what awards would we maybe know about, or what kinds of things have you all funded recently that we might be able to relate to? I'm just having kind of trouble putting it in perspective.
I'm not sure that you would know what they would be, but I can certainly list quite a few of them since I've been there for 29 years. When we first, some of the ideas that teachers have come to us with, and it becomes very exciting for their creativity. One, they had a mural that they had asked for extra funds at Parker Middle School.
Okay.
That's way back. When we first started with all of the different types of technology, there were digital cameras. That was not in the budget of the Chelmsford Public Schools, so teachers applied for that. And then within whatever their budget was, they had the batteries. That showed a trend. After we had the trend, it was incorporated into the budget of the schools. We had Elmo cameras, and that wasn't in that technology budget initially either. And so when we got like 18 requests in applications, we figured there was a trend that was there, and we turned it over to the school system saying, teachers are doing the review, they need these things in their classroom. There was that. We had a biology teacher that was at McCarthy Middle School. That biology teacher only wanted materials that she could put in a bucket because there's a stream out there, and she wanted to take her class out, but she wanted extra stuff to do that. We have one person that's at Westland Schools that runs the CHIPS program. Every year for, I think, 4 or 5 years, she has made an application for under $300 just to support her CHIPS program to promote more of what she needs to do in order to enhance that. Does that help?
Yes, thank you very much. And then how is how are the grant requests announced, the process for this? How is that communicated out to those people who might be applying?
So in January, for that particular, we'll do it if we have more than one application in the future. We will continually do this. I contact the technology director, and the superintendent of schools is always a member of this committee by statute. They will, if we may have to revise the application because you got to change the dates on it, and then we send that to them, and they send it out to every staff member via email. There is also the application updated that is on the town website.
Great, thank you. And then the last question is, can you give us an idea of on average, how much in grants are provided each year?
It depends on the applications, how many we get. One year we had 17 applications. At that point, it exceeded $6,000, so what we did was we paid back and asked some of them to make the application the following year. Because we are limited by what we receive in, then we are also limited by what we can give out. And so we've averaged, I would say, between $3,000 and $4,000 a year.
Great.
Except this past year there was only one, and that was our teacher from Westlands. We had 3 applications, but we go through a screening process. We have specific criteria that we go by with each one of those. And also a question that you may not have answered that kind of can be linked with what you were asking is that when they are approved and notified, we do announce who they are at the Board of Selectmen, at the Select Board meeting in June, before school ends. They then have access to the funds through the Chelmsford Public Schools business office. They put in a purchase order. Money is transferred from the municipal side on the line item of what we appropriate for that year to the school department budget line item, and then they have access to that. Any excesses then go back to the municipal line item.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ginger.
Thank you.
Stacey Mulholland, Precinct 8. I guess mine is discussion. I firmly believe in this committee and the work that Arts and Tech in town. I do ask the committee to update what's on the town website. The most recent document only shows through 2015, the awards that you've given. So I think people would like to know, and more people would give if they understood what it was going to. You did have a picture for 2024, but no description about what those people, the money is going to, and I think people would really like to know in a much more open way of where it is. So just please update your website, and I do hope people continue to give any little bit they can, because it can really make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you.
There also is the annual report, and there is a written assessment of every year of what it is we give out and to whom. Thank you.
Hi, Lauren Roberts, Precinct 8. If we approve this tonight, when would this go into effect, and would teachers be able to benefit from it this year?
If you approve it this evening, my understanding from past experiences is it takes 2 months or 3 months. It has to be approved by the Attorney General's office. As soon as the town clerk or the town manager gets approval from the state, then we are able to put out an application right immediately. If you take a look at the time frame, this is October, January would probably be the earliest that we would be able to do an application in the near future. It doesn't mean, because we will have the flexibility, doesn't mean that we wouldn't be able to then have a second application if we wanted to in June, or whatever the committee decides to do at that point.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? There being none, we will vote on Article 32, which is to amend the general bylaws regarding the Chelmsford Arts and Technology Education Fund. Has everyone voted the way they want to vote? All right, then the article passes 118 in favor, 1 opposed, 1 abstention. Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Article 19 is an article I've sponsored in conjunction with the Save Chelmsford Wildlife and Newhouse Wildlife Refuge. This article would authorize the Select Board to petition the state legislature, which is formerly known as the General Court, for special legislation to enact a home rule petition, which is basically a special state law that would authorize the town to come back to town meeting to adopt a bylaw to prohibit or restrict the application of second-generation anticoagulant rodenticides within the town of Chelmsford. As you'll hear in the presentation this morning from Derek Suhu of Save Chelmsford Wildlife, this is an action that the town of Barica and a number of other towns in the Commonwealth are seeking, have adopted, and we're seeking the legislature to enact a bill to basically address this issue and protect our wildlife. So at this, I'm going to turn the podium over to the presentation by Derek this evening. So come on up, Derek.
Okay. Just by way of technicality, Derek is not a resident of the town of Chelmsford, so we would need a vote to approve him to do the presentation. Do we have a second? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much.
That's intimidating. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Derek Suhu. I'm here as the founder of Save Chelmsford Wildlife. Tonight, I would like to talk to you about our home rule petition to protect Chelmsford's wildlife, water, community, health by addressing the use of rodenticides in town. What are SCARs? Second-generation anticoagulant rodenticides are poisons used in black bait boxes to kill rats and mice. They work by preventing blood clots, which leads to internal bleeding.
Can you speak up, sir? Just yes. Yeah, there you go.
Okay. These were banned in 2015 by the United States Environmental Protection Agency for resale due to the dangers of pets and children. This means everyday consumers cannot buy them at the hardware store, and they are still available online. This is where pest control companies obtain SCARs. In 2022, 96% of rodenticides were used in Massachusetts were SCARs. SCARs don't kill immediately. Poisoned rodents wander around for days before dying. In that time, they are often eaten by predators like owls, hawks, foxes, and then who are also poisoned. These poisons can stay potent for months before losing their potency. When SCARs are used in everyday homes, that poisoned rodent can hide in your home until death. It could be found by your pets and children. They could also die in your walls, which creates a foul odor. In 2022, the American Poison Control Center reported over 11,000 people in the United States that had been treated due to the exposures of SCARs. 5,500 of them were children under the age of 5. This isn't just a rodent problem, it's a community problem. Owls, hawks, foxes, coyotes, pets, and even our national bird, the bald eagle, can be poisoned when they eat contaminated rodents. These poisons ripple through the food chain, wiping out our very predators that naturally keep the rodents' populations in check. Here in Massachusetts, testing has found rodenticides in many species of wildlife. In 2020, the Tufts Wildlife Clinic found 100% of red-tailed hawks that were found dead had traces of SCARs in them. This has been an increasing number over the last decade. Wildlife rehabbers treat dozens of cats, dogs, and other pets each year that were affected by SCARs. Traces have also been found in our waterways, which are threatening our drinking water. Chelmsford's conservation lands, wetlands, and local wildlife are all at risk. The good news is there are safer alternatives. Owl boxes attract natural rodent hunters. A single owl can eat up to 1,000 mice per year. Snap traps and exclusion methods are effective and safe. With simple steps like securing trash and reducing waste, we can prevent infestations before they start. Public education has been a focus for Save Chelmsford Wildlife. We will continue to organize free public education events like the one we had in the town common this past summer. Other cities and towns, Massachusetts, are beginning to look at rodenticide restrictions. There are 95 out of 351 cities and towns in Massachusetts that have organized groups such as Save Chelmsford Wildlife. 40 have reduced the use of SCARs, and 15 have passed home rule petitions like the one we are talking about tonight. These numbers are growing each month as we are all pushing for the state bill and act restricting the use of rodenticides in the environment. July 24th was our lobby day at the State House, organized by the Mass Audubon and the MSPCA. Save Chelmsford Wildlife members participated and met with our district representatives, Osorio, Elliott, and Senator Barrett, all who have co-signed this bill along with 95 other representatives and 24 senators. Chelmsford has the opportunity to lead and to show that we can protect our families, pets, and environment without relying on dangerous poisons. This petition asks the state to give Chelmsford the authority to restrict the use of SCARs within our town. It does not ban pest control. People and businesses can still manage rodents. It just simply encourages a safer way. By passing this petition, Chelmsford will be protecting our children, pets, wildlife, will safeguard our rivers, wetlands, and water supply, and will support a healthier long-term solution to rodent control that actually work with nature and not against. So tonight, I ask for your support for the Chelmsford Home Rule petition. You're choosing to protect our wildlife, water, families, and a chance to show our town, state, and country that we care about our future. So on behalf of Save Chelmsford Wildlife, thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
The Finance Committee unanimously recommends approval of Article 33.
Select Board have a recommendation.
The Select Board unanimously recommends approval of Article 33.
Any questions for the presenter?
Thomas Hall, Precinct 7. What I'm hearing is the poison that you're talking about. Is that the same medicine that people use to help regulate their the thickness of their blood?
It's one
Like
method.
warfarin or Coumadin?
Yeah.
And how would this legislation affect people that are on there? Would there be any restrictions on how they can dispose of their medicines? Or?
I couldn't hear you. I'm sorry.
He wants to know how this particular warrant article would allow them or restrict them in how to dispose of excess medicine that they have.
Right.
No, it's not.
It would have no impact, but this only would restrict the sale of the pesticides that are used to address wildlife. But basically, that professional exterminators or others that can get it through the internet, the application at the community. This would not affect people's ability to dispose of medications.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Badriup, Precinct 11. So the sale of this pesticide, rodenticide, is already restricted in physical stores.
No, it was restricted by the state in 2015 for resale. So you can't buy them in Home Depot, Lowe's. And
Yeah, so you can't buy it in Home Depot and
but they are
Lowe's.
available online.
So I could buy them from Amazon. How do we check Amazon or the pest control people? Are they supposed to check in, or is they subject to town laws, or how does it get checked? Are residents supposed to be notified of this so that they can the next time call a pesticide company or animal control company? They have to. What's the process?
I really don't know how they can check private accounts.
So what's the teeth in this is my question, is that, yes, it's a home rule petition, gets approved, we adopt it. If the state doesn't do that, what's the next step in control of this, or educating or making people aware that this is not now allowed in Chelmsford?
Fines.
Yeah, we, as I mentioned at the outset, we would have to come back and adopt the bylaw, and I think that would restrict it, and therefore that would be made known to professionals who perform this type of activity in commercial and residential applications. We also would include an educational and informational program so that residents of the community could inquire again if they had the need for rodent control at their place of work or place of dwelling, so they can be aware, so that to inquire that that's prohibited. And obviously, if it came to the attention that these were used, because it does become to the attention of by usually the foxes or other wildlife that die in a neighborhood and so forth, then we would do the best that we can. So there's no sure guarantee, but this is a means of obviously reducing the application and use of these materials.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kathy Tuberty, Precinct 8. Just a recommendation that when we come up with these bylaws, that we also have a way of disposing of it in a safe manner. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. No one else? We'll vote on Article 33 regarding a home rule petition regarding second-generation anticoagulant rodenticide prohibition. Prohibition. Yeah, I know. I get rodenticide, but I can't get prohibition. Okay, has everyone voted the way they want to vote? Look now at your little clicker, and if it says you voted the wrong way, change it. If not, Okay. The article passes 111 in favor, 8 opposed, 1 abstention. Mr. Manager?
Yeah, Mr. Moderator, thank you. Town meeting representatives. Article 34 is a citizen petition article submitted by John Ray this evening, and I believe John has Dave Dodge who'll be presenting this article for the Coolest Farm Friends this evening.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dave Dodge, 19 Chestnut Hill Road, Precinct 5, and a newly elected Precinct 5 town rep just tonight as filling in a vacant position. I've lived in Chelmsford for 42 years, and I want to give back to the wonderful town of Chelmsford that we live in. So I joined the Friends of Coolest Farm team. I'll tell you about what we're all about in a minute. And I'm new to town meeting, as I just said. I'm going to read the friendly amended Article 34 as included in the packet, page 180, slide 180. Article 34, Preservation of Open Fields at Coolest Farm. Updated warrant article language, friendly amendment, Article 34. Preservation of Open Fields at Coolest Farm. To see if the town will vote to recommend that the Select Board maintain the town-owned property known as Coolest Farm, located at 185 Pine Hill Road, and acquired using Community Preservation Act CPA funds in the condition last maintained by the Department of Public Works, DPW, for the two town areas shown on the attached handout. I'll describe those as a reference point in time as family-friendly, open recreational open fields. The property should be recognized as community-focused multi-use land as proposed by the Coolest Farm Task Force, including designated open field areas suitable for passive recreation and improved community or town events, not to exceed approximately 1 acre in the left field, I'll talk about what that is, and 1 acre in the right field, as shown on the attached diagram. The town is encouraged to maintain the two defined areas shown on the attached diagram in open condition through volunteer efforts and not allow these areas to revert to unmanaged habitat or forest, submitted by John Ray. We're presenting our Article 34 that's different from all the other articles tonight, as it has no cost and the vote is really not binding. It's a citizen petition. The article presents an opportunity for the town meeting reps and citizens to express their opinion regarding the family-friendly open space on the Coolest property. We're asking the town meeting to vote in favor of the citizen petition. Simply put, the petition requests the Select Board and town to designate and document 1.5 acres as maintained family-friendly open space. The term community use was advertised to encourage the purchase of the Coolest property in 2023. Community use is interpreted by many people in town as maintained open space easily accessible by all townspeople, much like Bartlett Park and Red Wing Farm. Friends of Coolest is a group of neighbors and townspeople volunteering time and effort to maintain and enhance the former Coolest family farm. This property was purchased by the town for $4.1 million in November 2023. Here's an overhead view of the entire Coolest property, thanks to Google Maps. You may look at the handouts and the tables also. There are some out there. The property has a total of 41.9 acres in multiple parcels. They're in the yellow outlined boxes shown on the overhead. 25.2 approximately acres are at 185 Pine Hill Road. That's north of Pine Hill Road. It's the white dashed box shown on the presentation. This article is focused upon that 1.5 acres of open space. That's the blue outlined areas, the two little tiny blue outlined areas on the thing. That's open space. It's less than 4% of the entire property that the town purchased. That leaves 23 acres approximately of contiguous natural conservation space and some walking trails. Approximately 5 acres of wetlands and miscellaneous driveways, et cetera, parking lot. And then there's approximately 11 acres of agricultural use that's in the green dashed boxes. The property was purchased with Community Preservation Act funds, so a conservation restriction is required by the state of Massachusetts.
to ensure this land remains preserved for the purposes for which it was acquired, open space. The definition of open space from the Community Preservation Coalition provided by the town to the Coolest Farm Task Force is, open space shall include but not be limited to land to protect existing and future well fields, aquifers, and recharge areas, watershed land, agricultural land, grasslands, fields, forest land, fresh and saltwater marshes and other wetlands, ocean, river, stream, lake and pond frontage, beaches, dunes, and other coastal lands. Lands to protect scenic vistas, land for wildlife or nature preserve, and land for recreational use. The Select Board tasked the Conservation Commission to manage the Coolest property with its first priority to ensure the conservation restriction is completed. The CR creation and approval typically takes multiple years, and several are underway in town, including the Coolest CR. So we know it's going to be a few years before that gets completed. The Friends team is led by John Ray, who's a neighbor. John was part of the Coolest Farm Task Force in 2024 that recommended multiple uses for the purchased property, with selected uses such as walking trails, native plant meadow, agricultural/pasture land, which has already been assigned and operating on 2 of the parcels in the southern portions of the property, community garden, sledding hill, event area. The Friends team has been working with the Conservation Commission, Chelmsford DPW, and other volunteers to clean up old farm debris, make property accessible, create initial nature trails, etc., to open the space to the public. The Friends team appreciates the Conservation Commission efforts and the conservation focus for most of the property. We want to continue to work in partnership to maximize the strengths of each organization. After completing the multi-team Coolest cleanup, the property opened in the spring of 2024. 2 areas of maintained open space were created by these initial efforts and were sustained mostly by neighborhood volunteers from the spring of 2024 through the spring of 2025. That gave the town a taste of having maintained open space as the Coolest property. Many visitors were seen spending time at the Coolest during that year. As shown on the overview of the property, 2 parcels have already been assigned for agricultural use. However, no formal designation or documentation has been created for family-friendly passive recreation. I'm going to address 2 common questions we've received regarding wording in the citizens' petition. First, the phrase, and I'm going to summarize it, in the condition last maintained by the Department of Public Works for the 2 areas shown. That refers to the 2 maintained areas I just mentioned and shown as only the blue outlined areas in the property overview slide. Second common question that we often get, so why was this article created? Many have heard that Friends of Coolest and Conservation Commission are close to agreement. That's true for nearly all the proposed maintenance and uses of the property. The July and October 2025 Conservation Commission Coolest updates from their town webpage are nearly completely aligned with the Friends' positions. Even during a recent walkthroughs of the property, there was nearly complete agreement. A single continued difference is the formal designation of approximately 1.5 acres of open areas out of the property's 41 total acres. That's really the rub that we've got. Emphasizing the different points of view for maintaining the 2 Coolest open spaces is the frequency of maintenance. Friends of Coolest propose approximately weekly maintenance of the 2 areas throughout the entire growing season and year. This will ensure family-friendly open space use. The Conservation Commission proposes maintenance of this space roughly twice a year and letting it grow to meadow during the initial growing season until July. Even with the 2 maintained areas, there still will be more than 23 acres of conservation space that remains untouched. In summary, Chelmsford families invested $4 million in this property. They deserve a reasonable return on their investment. We are asking town meeting to vote in favor of the citizen petition that requests the Select Board and town to designate and document approximately 1.5 acres as continually maintained, family-friendly open space. Thank you.
Thank you, and welcome to town meeting.
Thanks.
Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
The Finance Committee did not have an opportunity to vote on the amended warrant article as presented this evening, but unanimously recommended against approval of the original article with 5 abstentions.
Does the Select Board have a recommendation?
The Select Board recommended against approval with 3 in favor and 1 abstention.
Okay. Time for questions. Discussion. Debate.
Good evening, Mr. Moderator. If I may, my name is Carl Bischoff. I'm with the Conservation Commission. I'm the chair of the commission. Would I get a couple extra minutes on my 3-minute time?
Yeah, you'll get a couple
okay.
of extra minutes.
Thank you very much. I'm a member of the Conservation Commission, the CPC, the Community Preservation Committee, and Town Meeting Rep Precinct 4. You can start the clock. In May 2024, the Conservation Commission was asked by the Town Manager and Select Board to develop the conservation restriction and manage the Coolest Farm parcels. The Commission voted to accept this responsibility. That same month in 2024, the Coolest Farm Task Force, made up of residents appointed by the Town Manager, made their recommendations to the Select Board. The Select Board thanked the task force and stated that the Commission would take those recommendations into account as we, the Commission, assumed the responsibility for the property. The task force recommended the following. You heard the list: walking trails, native plant meadow, wildlife rescue facility, space for a community garden, in the future if it's ever needed, sledding hill, agriculture. We have approved already 2 agricultural use licenses, and an event area. We, the Commission, agree with all of these recommendations, with the only exception being that building a wildlife rescue facility does not comply with the Community Preservation Act requirements for open space. We very much support the work of the Newhouse Wildlife Rescue and protection of wildlife, but that didn't fit into the CPC requirements. And then the event area, which the report stated, an event area is also very much in the spirit of Coolest Farm and is favored by the task force. This was tagged on in the report without any description and no mention of the term family friendly. It's a term that has no legal definition and is highly subjective. In addition, the task force was not unified in the support of this particular recommendation. All that said, I and other members of the Commission have met with Mr. John Ray, the proponent of this article, on the farm multiple times in the last month. Each time I have come away believing we are in agreement, as you just heard, on the plan for this parcel of land, and that this article will be withdrawn. And then, in a day or so, something changes and he's asking for something more. The Commission has posted the Coolest Farm Plan update on our website since July. We just updated it a couple of weeks ago, and that is our current plan that we are working towards. As I said earlier, the Town Manager and the Select Board asked us to manage the site and to develop the conservation restriction. What we're focused on is getting that conservation restriction completed. We have a kiosk installation that was just completed a week ago. We'd like to get picnic tables. We'd like to install the handicapped accessible parking and signage. We want to install a granite sign. We have site cleanup, including debris in the vernal pool and concrete pad removal. Ongoing trail maintenance has been going on. We'd like to get into invasive plant management. We want to also install a split rail fence for better vernal pool buffer delineation. We have a lot of things on our list, a good plan for that site. We also strongly encourage events on the site, as we do on all of our sites, including nature walks, night sky viewing, scouting activities, and picnics. The Conservation Commission is made up of 7 volunteers, and we're very proud of the work we do to support the town of Chelmsford in the area of natural resources. We believe our current plan for Coolest Farm supports the right balance between public access and protecting our natural resources. We have been doing just that on our other sites in town. This past Friday, October 17th, we installed over 600 feet of split rail fence at Red Wing Farm on Maple Road. Last year, we installed nearly 200 feet of extended walkway at the Wright Reservation on Parker Road. We've made other significant improvements on open space properties such as Thanksgiving Forest, Warren Pole, and we're happy to continue with the Coolest Farm property with our current plan. We have agreed with the proponent of this article, Mr. Ray, to mow this space as we have designated for the time being. He has agreed to this, but we cannot commit to this long-term, as that would require committing volunteers and/or town funding for maintaining this area, which is not possible. This comes down to how much mowing how much mowing of grass should be allowed, and that is not something that should be decided in town meeting. We've come to an agreement on this. The Conservation Commission has a plan that this volunteer has agreed to, and then he keeps changing and asking for changes, and I'm not really certain why the article is before you. In fact, one of the maps, which is now different, but one of the maps that was in the slide was my map. This was our plan. This was our plan, and they were using that in their presentations. I created that diagram.
Are you much longer, Mr. Bishop?
I'm done. I urge you to vote no on this non-binding article. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, Phil Stanway, Precinct 5. I was the vice chair of the Coolest Farm Task Force, and I went through all the meetings. I listened to the residents, and I kept hearing that they wanted someplace to use, someplace that was open. If anyone stopped by and saw the Scarecrow Festival at Bartlett Park, that's family friendly. Parts of Red Wing, family friendly. But I drive by Coolest, which I do because it's right next to my house, just up the street, and what I see is a field of grass. I go walking there, there are intermixed trails, and what I'd like to see, and I think residents want to see, is 1.5 acres just like the area behind the library. It's a minuscule piece. It's less than 4%. And I think those residents who paid $4.1 million, I thought it was overpaid. I think they deserve someplace right there. A field you can go and play ball on, that you can picnic on, that you can have scouts be on. Currently, there's nothing out there that you can do that. You couldn't have a scout event out there. You couldn't go out there and sit and picnic. There's a very small area. You couldn't have a night viewing out there. It's just not there. So I think all they're asking is just give us this one slice for the amount of money residents and families are paying. 1.5 acres, less than 4%. It's a minuscule amount. So I'd ask that we vote yes and then send it back to the select board and ask how they feel about when we buy property, if we should set some aside for family friendly. I don't think it's a big ask. It's a big ask to ask residents and families for the money, but in return, they should get a small return on that investment. So I ask everyone vote yes on this. It doesn't change or demand anything. It just says, let's send it back to the select board and let's see if they can get an agreement. Let's see if John, Ray, and friends and conservation can come up with an agreement. It's not going to cost the town any money. There's already third-party funding and equipment in the wings waiting to cover everything. So it will not cost anything more than Red Wing costs or Sunny Meadow costs. It costs nothing. So I ask you to vote yes.
Thank you.
Glenn Thorin, Precinct 7. A couple quick questions, if I may. This is a little bit confusing to me because I'm hearing different points of view that are talking about the same place. Passive use for that 1.5 acres sounds like you could go out there and have a picnic and the grass wouldn't be up to your knees, and you said you want to maintain this particular area. Could you please define what maintain means?
Sure, I'll give it a shot, and that's been the hot button.
I'm guessing that.
Yeah, the hot button really has been talking about maintaining the length of the grass. And as I indicated, if you let part of that area, the 1.5 acres or all of it, go to meadow in the beginning of the growing season, the weeds and grass and vegetation will overtake it quickly. That will require, when you do come back to mow it, to make it grass so you can do family-friendly things like picnic or play a ball game on it. It would require bushwhacking multiple times and then mowing multiple times. Rocks will be hidden and cause problems for the equipment. So we're maintaining that if you just open a space for that whole period, the whole growing season, and maintain it appropriately for friendly use, open space, picnics, ball games, stargazing, whatever, it's more effective and more inviting for the townspeople.
So have you and the Conservation Commission come to a common definition of what maintain means with respect to, I'm going from 1 week to 2 weeks to 5 weeks, and I walk up in this area, and if the grass is up to my knees and it's full of ticks and stuff like that, I'm not going to use it. You know, so it sounds like you might have different definitions of what maintain means.
Yeah, that's a lesson learned, I think, for the town buying the property and trying to figure out exactly how we're going to delegate the uses of various parcels of any property that we buy. There was not agreement between maintenance. There was not agreement about what's family friendly, as Carl said. We were dancing around the word mowing and maintaining low grass. And that's really the rub. And it's the space that could be maintained as open space. We understand that we're not really asking the town to commit to maintain the 1.5 acres. We're asking for that allowable use so the people that got the touch of, oh, we've got an acre or so of fields, a little bit more, actually a lot more when the DPW first cleared it. A lot of my neighbors have walked their dogs there. They spend time wandering through the trails because it's inviting. You pull into the parking lot, it's mowed grass that you see. Those go off into the mowed trails.
Okay. Mr. Dodge, the question was, what does maintain mean?
Yes, that was a little more of an answer than I was expecting.
Okay.
So my last question is, I'm trying to decide how to vote on this. Mm-hmm. So if I could ask the chairman of the Conservation Commission to respond to this particular question, you know, is the maintenance expected of the Conservation Commission described in the same way that I've just heard you describe it, so that when I go up there at any random time, the grass isn't 2 feet tall? I just need to understand, what am I voting on here? And it sounds like this is a keystone to the issue.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Mr. Bishop?
So if I understand the question is the question about the maintenance and the cutting of the grass. We came to an agreement, as I said, more than once in the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks, on cutting the grass on a regular basis in that space. We agreed to it, and every time I walked away from that agreement, I was like, good, they're going to pull the article because we're in agreement. And then it comes back, and I don't know how I can describe it any other ways. That blue area, give or take a little bit. In fact, Mr. Ray even said, oh, we should leave some of it with milkweed for the pollinator monarchs. And I'm saying, great, that's great, we can do that. We can do that, and we want to clear the areas around the stone walls. We're all in agreement on making the stone walls nice and visible. We're in agreement. I don't know why we're here.
Okay, thank you.
John Hasty, Precinct 5. So quick question to the previous speaker. What is the agreement that you've come to? You've said regular maintenance. I didn't hear any detail of what that actually entails. Going back to the same question, what was agreed?
We agreed to weekly cuttings if that's what it takes. That was fine. We were in agreement with that.
Okay, that's pretty clear.
Padri Uplipan, Precinct 11. A few questions. It may be for town manager or for Conservation Commission. When you say it's open for, under the CR, it's open for events. Is there a definition of events and the number of minimum people or around that? Any clarity on that would be great.
Through you, Mr. Moderator. There is no definition of events. What people need to recall is this land is going to be put under a preservation restriction in accordance with state law. What a preservation restriction is, it's a document that is recorded at the Registry of Deeds in perpetuity. Okay? And we have them on other pieces of land in town, and we also manage other pieces of town, including the conservation, without any restriction because they weren't acquired through the Community Preservation Fund. What those preservation restrictions provide is what's allowed uses and what's restricted uses. For example, restricted uses, you can't mine it for gravel and so forth. And then it's allowed uses. You know, you're allowed to do agriculture, you're allowed to do something. But the point is, it's written in those type of uses because society and the uses of the land are likely to change 20, 30, 50, 70, who knows how many years from now. So we're not going to define in the restriction, and I've never seen it defined in the restriction, what an event is, because what an event is today was probably not an event was in the 1960s or in the year 2060. Folks, the management and the activities of this property are going to evolve over time. And if we think that in the year 2025, we're going to have that vision that we're going to pigeon the town into restrictive uses, that's not what the restriction does. What the restriction does is it, in accordance with the state law, allows the land to be used for open space purposes and defines, as I said, generally allowed terms and generally prohibited terms. So no, you're not going to find a definition of event. You're not going to find a definition of family friendly. We're not going to specify in the document that's presented by the select board and sent to the state for approval how many times you cut it a week. That's not what this is.
Okay.
Thank you for the passionate answer. Next quick question. So as I understand from the previous speaker, I just want to make sure that I understood that Conservation Commission is agreeing to maintain the property at an appropriate level of maintenance or length of grass or others that such that it is a usable area in that blue box or blue rectilinear shape or amoebic shape in general, and as it's understood, it may not be written into the CR as per the previous speaker's explanation, but it certainly is going to be maintained. Okay, thanks on that, clarity-wise, essentially. To the presenter of the article, another quick question is there general accessibility to this place from the nearby areas, the residents? They can generally access this. Is this the only facility that they would have within walking distance or bicycling distance, so to speak, within 1,000 feet to 5,000 feet, whatever the metric is, it's general, then they don't have to go further out?
Mr. Moderator?
Go ahead.
Thank you for the question. Yes, the Coolest property is located amongst residential areas. It's an old farm property that hasn't been developed yet, or pieces of it were sold off, from my understanding, over the years, and there are some new homes that originally were not on the property. That was well before the town bought the property. I'd say you can walk, and you can walk in the backside of it through a trail as well. So there are probably, well, I'm guessing, 50 homes within a half mile as the crow flies with this space.
Okay.
So does that answer the question?
That does, thanks.
Okay.
Okay. One more question.
You've
Final
had your
question. Just
four.
one. Was it four?
Yes.
Just one question, just for the maintenance, just one question.
This is going to be the last.
Yes, last one. For me, at least, it's the last one. How many members in the Friends of Qualis Farm that are willing to participate in a collaborative manner in maintaining this area under the guidance of the Conservation Commission as they have agreed to maintain it? They may guide, they may volunteer, they need more volunteers.
That's a great question, and the number fluctuates. I'll use a baseline number of we had at least 10 people that were volunteering during the initial cleanup of the debris and clearing of the space. I suspect the number will be higher than that if we get the approval to maintain and cut the grass appropriately, maintain the space so we can have the 1.5 acres of family-friendly space. Is that adequate answer?
That's an adequate answer. Mr. Moderator, you can start the clock. Thank you. I will still be confused at the end of the day because it's a collaborative of the two sets of people who have to come together. But given the fact that conservation restriction cannot be written in a very detailed and subjective manner, in a restrictive manner, saying yes or no, because it's written for a very long term, number one. Number two, Conservation Commission speaks openly today about the fact that they are willing to maintain the property for general event or accessibility of people to access it. The definition of an event not being known, but hopefully the fact is 10 people can show up or just have a good time, just having, laying a blanket out and or a scout activity that wants stargazing, the place needs to be generally and reasonably mowed down for usability purposes. Given that is there, given the fact that there is volunteerism behind the Conservation Commission's maintenance effort and the Coolers Farm, I think the sentiment being that don't have to force the Select Board, force Conservation Commission. I'll probably vote no for myself in this, at this point, taking the word of Conservation Commission and what is available. So that's my personal viewpoint on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, John Ray, 223 Pine Hill Road. What we're looking for is to maintain the 1.5 acres just the way we maintained it for a year, much as Red Wing Farm is maintained. I don't see that in the conservation plan. The right field is listed as a meadow. That's not what, that's not a area that you can go into right now. We want to maintain it like Redwood Farm and like we maintained it for a year, and it was taken away from us. Any questions? If we get agreement on that, we're done. We can do that. We'll come in and do it. We'll get volunteers. I've never had a problem getting volunteers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sam Poulton, 16 Berkeley Drive. I have a couple of questions. First, to the Finance Committee, if I may, through the moderator. I note that the Finance Committee unanimously recommends against, with 5 abstentions. There are 7 members of the Finance Committee. I don't think the Finance Committee unanimously...
Why don't you ask the question that you want to ask?
How does the Finance Committee come up with unanimously recommends against with 5 abstentions? Could somebody maybe on the abstention...
Okay, let him answer the question.
I said, could somebody on the abstention side explain why there are so many abstentions?
That's a different question.
Yeah.
You've asked 2 questions. Go ahead.
Mr. Moderator, through you to the previous speaker, I guess to address the first question, which was the abstentions versus the 2 recommendations against. We are an advisory board, and we advise based upon our decision. 5 members of the committee determined that they were not going to vote on this article, and they abstained from voting. Therefore, they voted an abstention or present vote. The 2 that voted in action of the article voted against it. So that's how you come to a 2 unanimous on an advisory vote and with 5 abstentions. The second question for abstentions, I can't speak individually for the other abstentions because, again, the abstention vote is a non-vote. You are not required to say why you're abstaining. You're just saying that you're present and you're abstaining from your vote. I can personally say that the presenter of this article presented this article to us at 2 different sessions of our Finance Committee. At that time, it was not clear whether or not they'd be proceeding with the article. There were discussions about changes. There was a discussion as to whether or not we would vote on that article that evening or vote for our recommendation. At that time, the article was as presented in the book and on the warrant article, not as updated this evening. At that time, I did not feel comfortable voting on an article where there was discussion that there was a near agreement, as had been discussed previously, as discussed this evening, and therefore abstained from voting on that article and giving a recommendation.
Thank you for the clarification, because I am confused as to why we are here. So my question is to the maker of the warrant. Are we talking about 1.5 acres? Is that the whole ball of wax?
At this time, we're willing to accept the 1.5 acres as the space that will be maintained as family-friendly. The cleared area previously was larger than that.
With all due respect to your answer, I think one of the reasons that we're here is rather than say yes or no, you're kind of equivocating. So I'm saying, are we talking about 1.5 acres, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. And my last comment to the Finance Committee, I sincerely appreciate all the hard work. I probably would have said the Finance Committee voted 2 against and 5 abstentions. It's a little misleading to say unanimously is against, but that's just my view. But thank you very much.
Nancy Arroway, 65 Littleton
Can you
Road.
get closer to the microphone, please?
I can.
Thank you.
Is that better?
That's perfect.
All right, let's try that. So my question is, am I correct in understanding that this vote is non-binding? It doesn't force anybody to do anything, and that you currently have a verbal agreement with the Conservation Commission to do what you're asking for here?
If I have to go binary, I would say no. I pointed out there's one significant difference, and that difference is allowing meadow to overtake that 1.5 acres in the early growing season. And the approach from the Conservation Commission, as I understand it, is to let it grow until July.
Okay. So the difference between what you're proposing is that it is maintained in a continuous mowed condition.
Yes, for 1.5 acres in 2 separate
during
places.
the entire growing season.
Yes.
And the Conservation Commission proposal is that it will be allowed to grow until it goes to seed and then mowed down.
Essentially, yes,
At-
my understanding
at
of the
which-
conservation.
Throughout the entire growing season. I don't think he heard that. So.
Well,
Okay. So this proposal would, if we voted yes,
Do nothing.
it would mean that this body supports the idea of continuous mowing of that area. And if we vote no, it would mean that we chose not to support continuous mowing of that area.
No.
I don't know.
No? I mean, if we drop it, I understand that we're no longer taking a stand. But if we keep it and we vote no on it, we're basically saying we don't support that.
No, we're not.
And I have to think that this is something that we should support.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi, Ginger Scoop, Precinct 5. Mr. Moderator, through you to the Conservation Commission.
Mr. Bischoff?
At the moment, the town manager brought up that the conservation restriction needs to be generalized so that it can act in perpetuity. In the model that the Google provides as the example of conservation restrictions, one of the phrases that is in here that seems to be similar to what's being described is being able to be used for recreational, I'm sorry, now my phone has gone dead, but the recreational use of this space, is that not a classification that could be put into the conservation restriction for the coolest property? Sorry, it's called passive outdoor recreational use or community park use. Are these not available qualifications for the Coolest Farm conservation restriction?
Mr. Moderator, through you to the previous speaker, that is likely the wording that will be in the conservation restriction, that some portion of this property will have the use of passive recreation. That's in our previous Warren poll. It would be standard. It's pretty much template wording. Yes. And
Thank
I apologize for my outburst earlier. I'm sorry.
Mr. Moderator, if you could start the clock. So I think what we've got here is we've got people hedging bets a little bit because they're not quite done with the work, but we've also got some legacy issues with trust. And I will say, when we voted on this $4 million to buy all this land that is pretty much unusable, one of the things that was pretty heavily pushed was that there was going to be some space where on the center and west side of town that we'd maybe have a field that wasn't Roberts Field, where there's a lot of light incursion and there's all sorts of recreational stuff going on, that it would be a little bit more like Red Wing, that it'd be a little bit more like Bartlett Park. Just a little bit of space. And it seemed like that was what was happening. I think that I agree mostly with the previous speaker about what this article was trying to get to, which is just to put something on the table right now that says, yes, we absolutely, as a town, we still want this. I don't feel, for the Conservation Commission has really given us a definitive answer, except once this evening, where they've said, yes, we'll mow it once a week. Right now, we've got a lot of distrust going in a lot of different areas of people saying one thing and then not delivering. This article, like the pet cemetery one last town meeting, is a way for a citizen to say, hey, I want something to happen. I want to know that my community is behind me. And especially because it is non-binding, it's not going to force anybody to do something that they weren't already planning to do, but it might change their mind. So I plan to support this as a way to say, yes, I would like that space. Yes, I think that we should keep working towards spaces like this while still providing conservation for the character of our town. And I hope that this is a way that we can just reaffirm what the Conservation Committee is apparently already going to do. So what's the harm in putting that support behind them? Thank you.
Thank you.
Susan McKinnon, Precinct 5. I'm not sure I even need to say all this after what the previous speaker said, but I am looking at the website for the Conservation Commission, and many of these activities, I guess you can start the clock, so I'm not asking a question yet, but I will ask one.
Well, if you ask one, the clock is running. Once you tell me that the clock is running, the clock is running.
That's fine.
So is the clock running?
Yes.
Okay.
Quite a few things are listed on the website already that seem to be in line with the intention of this property. It's already on the Conservation Commission website, such as site maintenance, volunteers mowing the lawn, cutting the field, cleaning up debris, supporting events as requested by the Conservation Commission, such as nature walks, star watching, scout activities, etc., and also involving welcoming and supporting volunteers to maintain the site, including mowing, brush cutting, trimming. So I guess I'm still just confused if voting yes for this or voting no for this, if either vote is going to make a difference in really changing what the Conservation Commission is doing. Does it matter if we vote yes or no since it's not binding? It sounds like they're already intending, or is it just going to send a message that we really want these parcels kept clear? So that's my question. What is this vote actually going to do?
Who are you asking that of?
Who has the power to decide?
You do.
Okay, I'm going to ask the speaker at the podium, what does this actually have the power to do?
Thank you for the question. This is a request to clarify the maintenance of 1.5 acres, less than 4% of the town's investment in a property. And the discussion is somewhat correct that it comes down to details and definitions of what is maintaining and how often maintenance occurs.
So the way you've worded the article, it didn't mention frequency, it just mentioned space. So I'm asking if, I don't want to really do an amendment, but I feel like it needs to be stated if that's what you're asking. For the maintenance, the part was not stated there. So I'm going to leave that to the people who know how to do that, but that's my confusion still, that it doesn't seem to be stated in the article, the maintenance part.
Thank you.
Hello, Bruce Rosen, Precinct 5. Mr. Moderator, I'm going to need your help on the wording of this. I'd like to move this to a vote.
You moving the question?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, would you please repeat your name because the acoustics here need some work.
I vote for that. Bruce Rosen, Precinct 5.
Okay, so you're moving the question. What that means is that you are terminating debate and that town meeting will vote whether to continue debate or to advance the article for vote on that.
Correct.
Okay, we have a motion to move the question. Well, thank you. Do we have that on the system? Okay, vote. So you may want to vote. You got your.
Can I move?
Yes, go sit down and vote.
Move the question. Solely to move the question. And then you got to vote the underlying article. You have to vote the underlying article.
By the time I get up there.
Obviously, this is Kelly Beatty for Chelmsford TeleMedia. In case you haven't picked up on it, there's been a lot of friction between the Conservation Committee and the Friends of Coolest Farm and the Open Space Conservation volunteers more broadly. Who
okay,
have,
has everyone voted the way they want to vote? Look at your clicker, and if you have to make a change, now's the time.
I'm going to be fascinated to see how this plays out.
Okay, I don't see
in
it
the months
changing. Well, it has just now, but it's the article, the motion to move the question has passed. 95 in favor, 17 opposed. Now we get to vote on the article, which is Article 34. This is going to be close.
Although people were eager to move the question, they appear uneager to support the request.
50-50.
A very close vote, if you can look in the upper right-hand corner. And with 11 abstentions, it'll be interesting to see if any of those change.
Anybody else voting who hasn't already voted? You got 30 seconds. I don't want anybody angry at me who isn't already angry at me. Okay, the article has failed. 56 opposed, 50 in favor, 9 abstentions. I will entertain, because what we have are others. Okay. All in favor of suspend? Thank you. Thursday should be, I think, easier.
Easier, you mean short?
Yeah, both.
All right.
Most of the time they don't.
Last time I got questions about pet cemetery.
I know. No, last time you had a busy night.
So Kelly Beatty here for Chelmsford TeleMedia at the conclusion of the first night of town meeting. It's played out pretty much as we expected, with mowing through the numerous articles having to do with the free cash of $4.9 million that was not going to the stabilization fund, the rainy day fund, if you will, but in fact was going to get spent on any of a number of bonus activities that otherwise wouldn't have been funded. For example, a new roof for one of the schools, more money for $1 million for a roadway improvement in the town. And so what we have left to take up on Thursday night is one additional batch of articles having to do, and if I'm doing the count here, there's 12 of them, all stemming from the situation at Kate's Corner in South Chelmsford, not far from where I live, which you might recall had Maxwell's farm supply store, which has closed, and now that triggered an enormous amount of debate over what should happen to that property, what is its true use, and if you look at the maps, it is a hodgepodge of zoning with some residential properties in that area being half residential and half commercial. It really is a mess. And so the planning board has gone back to think about this long and hard, has had many meetings, and what they propose to do is come up with a new zoning classification called roadside business light, much as Maxwell's was before, and to reconfigure that whole area and then to use that designation in a number of different places in town. So it's going to be fairly tedious, I promise you, but the outcome has wide-ranging implications for the uses in town. This would be a new classification, somewhat between heavy-duty commercial and residential, and there had been kind of a gap in allowable businesses. So I think you'll find it interesting. I do hope you'll join us on Thursday night for the continuation of town meeting. I'm Kelly Beatty for the staff and volunteers of Chelmsford TeleMedia, thanking you for joining us tonight. Good night.